welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another weekend edition of the PondCast. PondCast episode 64, your weekly dose of StarCraft 2 news, as we go over the news and the related news, of course, to StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 2 esports as well. Of course, shows like VIP, which we am joined by Kuro, handling the production, and of course by the lovely people in the chat as well. It has been a very busy week in StarCraft, and as always, as soon as we wrapped up last week's show, bam! They announced a patch. God damn it. So unfortunately, we weren't able to discuss the patch initially. Again, we weren't able to quite have the time to go over the patch before today either, just because we were busy judging the Team Look Good map contest. So I just had no free time available. But we're able to go through it here and now. Big news, of course. Again, it was a week ago, just over a week ago at this point, by a couple of hours. Remember, by the time this show ended, then bam, they went live with the patch. God damn it. For StarCraft 2. Now, again, this is something that at least I was confident was coming, just because there was already talks, I guess, quote unquote, behind the scenes, or rumors abound that they were getting in touch with the Blizzard representatives. We already knew this in regards to the map pool, right? Like we already knew at the beginning of the year that a new map pool was coming in November. Like, Wax Angel has been very transparent about the process, about the fact that even if there weren't going to be any balance updates and balance patches, that new map pool rotations would be a thing on a regular basis, and he has been refining a system to actually put together a new map pool on that at least annual, maybe even more regular basis at that as well. And that's, of course, on the horizon. That's worth discussing, of course, worth going into. We'll have some time to discuss that in the upcoming topics. But likewise, because we knew that we were going to be getting new patches, and because we knew there was interactions and communication with Blizzard already going on, then of course a patch was going to be abound. If you remember, this is also why I said that it was quite important in regards to Pig's video about bringing forward discussion about balance, about proposed changes, because there would be a patch coming, right? There would be a patch coming. I mean, didn't know for certain, but like was fairly like 80% sure, sure there was going to be a patch, and that things would be addressed in some way. So it was important that we got the community thinking and talking and discussing what would and what would not be good changes for said patch. And we just got one, right? We just got that PTR patch. Now, what's more important than the patch itself is what happened a couple of days ago. Not even a week later. I want to say it was like 4 days. It was around 4 days later, after the PTR patch notes were released, we actually got an update as well. And it was 4 days. It was less than a week later. So initially we had, bam, the new PTR patch notes for 5.015, 0.15, and then we got an update 4 days later. And what this tells us is that, hey, even when we were with ESL, even in years past, even with patches past, typically there'd be a patch, there'd be a PTR patch, it would be revealed, and then maybe a month later there might be an amendment to it. For the most part, it would go through untouched. Maybe there would be some changes here and there, but they'd be minimal, and it would be a little bit further in the lifespan of the patch after some testing was done. Here, for this to be so regular, or for this to be so soon after the initial patch was released, it honestly is pretty exciting. It's something that we haven't experienced in a very long time. But what it tells us is that whoever is at Blizzard working on this, whoever's a part of the Classic division and the Classic team, is actually active and is actually taking feedback, is actually thinking about these changes, actively applying changes, pulling back on some, pushing further on others. And this is definitely a more living and breathing kind of patch than we've had in a very long time. What I should also emphasize as well, as we're going to get into the specificities of the patch itself, is that what bodes really well is that by no means do I believe this to be the final iteration of the patch. If this is what changes have occurred in 4 days, what's going to happen a week from now? What's going to happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now? I would imagine we are going to get more iteration, more changes, more refinement of the patch throughout the course of the next month. My assumption, I should lead with this as well, is that we know that we're getting the new map pool in November. That we have known for a long time. November is kind of like the goal date to get our new map pool live from the TLMC, so I'm assuming that it's going to come hand in hand with the patch itself, right? So that's why if you've been hearing the phrase like November, or the timeline for November, the reasoning for this is because that's when the new map pool is hitting, so we assume they come together, right? We assume map pool in November, so because the game is going to be updated with the map pool, it's probably going to be patched at that point as well, right? And if that's the case, that means we have a month, right? That means we have all of October, or most of October, to actually go through, to iterate, to test as much as possible, to run tournaments as often as we can on the PTR, and to potentially even push forward and propose some other changes we would like to be seen as well. So really exciting, and I think it caught a lot of people off guard, myself included. Like, I was confident we were going to get a patch. I was not confident that we were going to get this much. I don't think anyone was expecting for us to get this much attention, right? This much attention to detail in regards to the patch itself, in regards to like how active this has been evolving over time. So really exciting stuff. As a StarCraft fan, of course, I'm sure everyone is. This is a good thing, right? There's a positive note, and good things abound. Meanwhile, when it comes to the patch itself, when it comes to what has been live for the past 2 days, bearing in mind that this is the update, it's been live for 2 days' time, and again, I'm sure we're going to be getting some more updates over the course of the month, of the coming months, and whenever there is one, we'll be discussing it here on the podcast. First, we have Zerg. Okay, so we did have the original changes and some added changes as well. First thing is first, the Spire. Spire cost reduced from 200 to 150 and the Spire build time was reduced from 71 seconds to 66 seconds as well. Now, something that we did know coming into this, I should say a common sentiment amongst a lot of figures in the community, whether it's ourselves, whether it's other content creators, other casters, other pro players, is ZVT. Is just the fact that Muta play and Ling Bane Muta has fallen and died off over the years. It's been a long time since that has been really prevalent in the meta. We still see it every now and then, but it's a rare sight, and I do believe that there is a sentiment amongst most people out there that do want a return of Ling Bane Muta in ZVT. And because of certain changes over the years, that has been pushed further and further back to the point where it's quite rare. It's quite rare nowadays, because of changes to the Queen, because of changes to the Banelings over the past couple of patches. Because of that, Roach-based play and Roach-based openers are very common, very meta. They are, I would say, standard. They're standard more so than Ling Bane, right? Going for Roach-based openers into Roach Ling Bane in the mid game, into Ultra Tech, which has been very prevalent as of recent times, or opening up Roaches into Hydra, into Hydra Lurker Viper Tech in a longer game state. But nonetheless, Roach play has been very integral over the past couple of years in ZVT, and it's one of those things where I guess I'll bring it back to what Gabe said. What was this, like a month ago at this point, where I feel like he kind of missed the point. And this is where, you have to make sure you're able to like take a bit of a step back and look at the greater picture of things. I think he said something along the lines of like he doesn't understand why they're changing or why they're adjusting Zerg, because like the win rates are more or less like balanced. And it's like, it's not about win rates, it's not about those percentages, it's about what the games are looking like right now, whether they're entertaining or not, whether they're good and healthy for the game or not, that sort of thing. And I would say that this meta of ZVT Roach-based play has not been good for the game. I would say it's been less exciting, it's been less impactful, it's been less intense, less micro-oriented. It's a much more defensive style as well, so there's just less aggression and less activity on the map in the early to mid game as well. So I would say it's been a negative aspect of the meta and of the game, and pushing away from that, I would say, is a good thing. So regardless of what's like the quote-unquote like win rates look right now, like that's not what this is about. So again, moving forward, like trying to entice and trying to incentivize Muta play, I would say is a good thing, and this is what we all expected, or at least what I expected out of the patch coming into it. Not just that, this is also a given. I think a lot of people were like a little bit scared this wouldn't happen, but like I thought this was like very clear as well. Speaking about moving away from Roach-based meta in ZVT, we have a reversion of the Baneling upgrade. So Central Vehicle Hooks now gives plus 5 HP. This used to be the case. This was removed like 1 or 2 patches ago. If you remember, the reason why this was removed is because of, or one of the reasons was ZVP. If you remember, this was nerfed at the same time as the damage change as well. Back in the day, I say back in the day, it wasn't even that long ago. It was like a year, 2 years ago. Bailing run-bys and Ling Bane play was very prevalent in ZVP, to the point where it was becoming a little bit out of hand. And because of that, they did nerf the Bailing damage. Before this, +2. +2 was a big power spike where +2 attack for Zerg would actually allow Bailings to one-shot probes. So because that, Bailing run-bys were very prevalent in ZVP, and it was actually very difficult, very unforgiving, and very difficult for Protoss players to defend their mineral lines and actually survive and actually maintain their economy against a Zerg player because of the non-stop Bailing run-bys and Bailing counterattacks. So they did nerf the damage of the Bailing so that +2 no longer let them one-shot. But they also did this. They also got rid of the HP bonus as well, nerfing it even further. There were like multiple nerfs at once on the Bailing, and that negatively impacted ZVT. It made it so Bailings were less useful, they were more risky, they were considered to be less viable, specifically against bio play, specifically against 7-minute timings and against 8 Raxes as well. That is also what led to the rise in prominence of 8 Raxes in ZVT in the meta, because Bailing openers no longer were that much weaker. Whenever someone tried to go into Ling Bane, they'd be punished quite heavily, and that also forced more Roach heavy play, right? Like it all played into it, where Bailings were nerfed, Bailings were less viable. That's why we saw the rise of Roach play in ZVT. It all kind of played into each other. So reverting this, in my mind, was like a no-brainer, and they did push it through. So again, they're trying to ideally push towards Ling Bane play again instead of Roach Ravager in ZVT, which I think is a good thing. And obviously they're not reverting the damage change, so they're not going to be like bringing back like how prevalent Bailings were against Protoss. This will help for sure, especially against Storm. We'll get into that. But the Bailings having a little bit more HP does mean that they will survive an extra tick of damage of a Storm, which does make Ling Bane more viable against Storm heavy play in ZVP as well. True, if you remember, because that was also a thing back in the day. That was also a thing when it came to army compositions. Currently, we see a lot of Ling Hydra play, a lot of Ling Hydra in ZVP. This means that Ling Bane Hydra or Ling Bane Roach Ravager is going to be more viable against Protoss as well, against more Storm heavy styles, but we'll get into that because there's a lot of changes happening at once. The other big change here, I say the other big change is this is kind of like a change in regards to meta. This most likely will impact ZVT the most. As I mentioned, the Bailing change is going to have impacts against Protoss potentially, just because it makes Bailings more viable against Storm heavy styles, so we'll be seeing more Ling Bane there. The other thing that this could also impact is ZVZ. In ZVZ, Mutaplay is seen every now and then as a follow-up, as a hidden tech choice. So for the Spire to be faster and for the Spire to be cheaper does mean that in ZVZ, Mutaplay and hidden Spires are going to be more punishing. True. This means that if you fail to scout, if you're late to scout a Spire in ZVZ, and if you get caught with your pants down, Mutas can end the game. They're not as bad as DTs. Mutas in ZVZ, they're almost like how in PvP, if one player goes Dark Templar, and if the other player doesn't have detection, the game ends. Right, that does happen. It happens to Max, it happens to Hero, it happens to Classic. We have seen the best of the best players in the world insta GG to DTs if they show up and there's no detection. That happens in that matchup. In ZVZ, Muta versus Muta play can be similar, where if the Spire goes unscouted, if Mutas arrive, and if you have no anti-air, if your spores aren't ready, if you don't have a Hydra Den, if you don't have Infestors, if you don't have a high Queen count, if you're not already preparing for Mutas because you failed to scout, then they can do critical damage. It's not as like insta GG as DTs, just because you can try to react, and your Overlord should be seeing the Mutas as they pop out of the bases, so you will have that heads up. You have a couple of seconds to react, but again, this is specifically in this scenario where you fail to scout the Spire with your Overseer scout. So in ZVZ, like this, basically it's just more punishing, right? Basically, you have less time to scout the Spire, and because it's cheaper, like it's more accessible as well. So this is going to have some connotations in ZVZ as well. Obviously, it'll have some connotations in ZVP. Mutaplay is seen every now and then in ZVP, specifically on larger maps. I'm talking about Maganatha. I'm talking about Tokamak as well, where you can open up Ling Roach and then go for a hidden Spire behind it, and if you're able to successfully hide it, then you can go into Mutaplay, and Mutas can be very, very oppressive if they go unscouted. That's also a thing that happens against Protoss. True. That also does happen against Protoss. So this does make that kind of that style much more dangerous and something that needs to be scouted. This is going to put a lot more pressure on Protoss to scout to find out what's going on, and we'll get into the Protoss scouting soon. There's again, it all plays into each other. Up next, this is one of the biggest changes, if not the biggest change, is Microbial Shroud. Now, Microbial Shroud, ever since its introduction, has been a massive meme. Now, if you remember, Microbial Shroud was not always in the game. What did it used to be? It used to be Infested Terran. Infested Terran, that was one of the supplemental anti-air tools that Zerg had back in the day. This was back in, of course, Heart of the Swarm. Well, that's when it was very prevalent, of course, and even before that in Wings of Liberty. The Infested Terrans, they were adjusted quite a bit. If you remember, they initially... They initially had they were infested Marines, and then they made a change where they actually increased the anti-air damage, and they turned the Marine gun into a rocket or something, and it did even more anti-air damage. I don't know why the hell they did that, but they decided, they buffed it. It got a little bit too intense, especially in Heart of the Swarm, which was the era of free units. Swarm herO's, Infestors, Broodlords as well. There was just... These in the end we decided, and which is a good thing, to move away from these units that are far too efficient and that slow the game down, and were far too cost efficient, specifically because you're spending you're spending energy instead of resources, and you'll just gain value and gain a massive bank over time. That's why the Swarm herO's was changed. That's why Infested Terran was removed. But Microbial Shroud, as I think we would all agree, was not a good replacement. It was a very niche spell, and still is a very niche spell, and it never really had its place. The reasoning for this is because it was meant to be a way to support the ground army when playing against SkyToss in ZVP. The problem is that whenever you play SkyToss, it's never pure SkyToss. There was always support, always in form of Storm, in the form of Colossus, in the form of Disruptors, but typically Storm, right? Storm is typically coming alongside SkyToss, and whenever there'd be a Microbial Shroud attempted, Storm would be there to punish and to completely shut it down. So Microbial Shroud is a meme as a result. You never really see it. There are these niche scenarios where you can go for like a Queen walk across the map, Queen Corruptor, and you get a couple of Infestors, and you try to go for an all-in as they're trying to rush into SkyToss. There's been some very niche scenarios where it's been used, but for the most part it is an unused spell. So here they're going to be taking a different approach. Also, I should emphasize that in the previous patch they did actually buff it, which, if you recall, I did say it should have been the case from the very beginning. The most recent change to Microbial Shroud, which was last year, or the beginning of the year, was that now it attaches onto the units that it's under for a couple of seconds. So when Hydras go into Microbial Shroud now, if you didn't know, which I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't, because, again, it's been a relatively recent change and we haven't seen enough of it actually played for it to actually be shown. But nowadays, ever since the most recent patch, which was at the end of last year, when a Hydra moves out of the Microbial Shroud, it actually attaches onto the Hydra. So now they can move out of Storm and they still have the effect of Microbial Shroud for a couple of seconds. That should have been the case from the beginning, but whatever. That was changed again at the end of last year. And here they're removing it. They're changing it again because it still didn't make it good enough, is the reality, of course. Now, Microbial Shroud reduces range attacks by 50% damage. A lot of people are saying this is the Dark Swarm change. It's not as good as Dark Swarm, by no means, but it is more along those lines, where now it does... Previously, it did reduce damage from air attacks. Specifically, now it is range attacks. This is a massive change, and this will be impactful in every single matchup, actually. It will be impactful in ZVZ, Roach versus Roach. True. Likewise, Lurker versus Lurker as well. This will be impactful for ZVT against bio-based armies, against mech-based armies, against siege lines, against everything. It will be impactful against Protoss as well. Maybe a little bit less against Protoss now that I think about it. It will help against... Yeah, just because... Yeah, it'll be now something that's more useful against other Zerg players in ZVZ and of course Terran players in ZVT. Against Protoss, it's going to help as well, but I would say maybe a little bit less impactful. Just because like SkyToss damage, I mean that's still I guess the same. I guess it helps a little bit against in the mid game, but I don't know if you'd really get infestors in the mid game. Maybe you would if this is good enough to help defend to be more defensive. But it's a pretty huge change. It's a very, very huge change, and it's going to be an interesting one. Now, very quickly, now no longer does it stick onto units. True. So they removed that. Now it lasted like less than a year, but they gotten rid of that. But they also increased the cost and they made it an upgrade, which makes sense. This was an amendment. This was the update to the patch, which is now Microbial Shroud is an upgrade. So now it's gated behind an upgrade. You can't just get the Infestor, which makes sense just because it's a very powerful upgrade. This does mean that now it's less accessible in the mid game, which is what I was kind of like, if you saw me there, I was trying to think of scenarios where it'd be useful against Protoss, and I was thinking of the mid game against like Stalker heavy compositions, but with this upgrade, with you requiring an upgrade as well, then it's going to be a little bit less impactful in the mid game, and again, more so a later game kind of tool to be used. And also they increase the cost, the energy cost, I should emphasize, of Microbial Shroud, which I think is a good thing because it does seem like a very powerful tool. And it's possible that it's going to be amended again. Like, this is one of those changes that is crazy. It's out of left field to make it was not on my bucket list to have Microbial Shroud be useful. This will make it useful, 100%. It's a very powerful upgrade now. And it will change the dynamic of a lot of matchups and a lot of interactions. It's crazy. and this is a bold change. And very quickly, before we get into the rest of the patch, this is exciting because this is not the only change like this, but I think for if you remember when we were discussing this like a month, 2 months ago, when we were discussing the idea of a new patch, of a new proposed patch, and we were discussing, you know, Pig's proposed changes, Harson's proposed changes, and something about Harson's changes, and I think Pig touched on that as well, and even Pig changes as well, they were very reserved. They were very reserved changes, right? It's like change like a couple of things here and there, you know, change the DT, fix the Cyclone, obviously, you know, add +5 to the Baneling, obviously, like do something about the Spire. But typically really reserved and typically just tweaking numbers here. I think a big reason for this is because, well, we're not asking for a lot because we didn't expect a lot, right? We didn't expect attention, you know. It's one of those things where like you know, you're maybe in like an abusive household or something. You're not gonna ask too much of Pappy Blizzard to give you, right? So you're like you take what you can get. So it was very, very reserved changes, being like, you know, maybe like a handful of changes here and there to adjust some things and to help out with the balance. But this is bold to reintroduce Microbial Shroud like this. This is a bold change. This is a change that takes a lot of confidence and takes a lot of bravado. And this is not something like the Balance Council would put forward. I was listening to Euthermal before this, and I'd have to echo his sentiments. How this is the advantage of getting changes made by supposedly not the Balance Council, but by Blizzard themselves, is that when it comes to a council constructed by pro gamers, because you have representatives from every race, they're always like pushing back against too big changes because they don't want to, right? Like, pro gamers don't want big change to their game. They don't want these massive overarching like scenarios where we reintroduce Microbial Shroud like this, or some of the other changes like the tank change, for example, or the storm change. Like they're typically, you know, wanting to tweak numbers and keep things more or less the same, and because of that, very little change gets made. Whereas here, if Blizzard's stepping in, they don't care. They're no pro gamers. They're like, yo, we're gonna do this. You're gonna have to deal with it. We're gonna make these sweeping big changes. It's going to change the game, and you're gonna have to work around that. That's just what are you gonna do about it? It's again, it takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of balls to do this, and I like it. I do appreciate that. But I do expect Microbial Shroud to be adjusted here, potentially. Like, in my mind, I'm still trying to think of scenarios where it would be useful, and we'll get back to talking about Microbial Shroud once we get an idea of how the other races are going to be changing. Now, scrolling down to Protoss, this is the other kind of like given that I think everyone assumed would be coming, just like a +1 HP bonus to Banelings. I think we all assumed that, of course, NG Overcharge would be nerfed as well, just because it has been a big issue in PvT and in PvZ as well, in all the matchups really. Even in PvP, it's had its own impact. When it comes to the NG Overcharge, There were a couple of things. Obviously, something that everyone is aware of is Storm, right? The strength and the prevalence of Storm-based play in most matchups in PvZ and in PvT as well. The strength of that. But something else that, of course, everyone is aware of, but kind of falls by the wayside because it's a little bit less overt in its strength, is scouting. Scouting from Protoss is a big issue because it is so prevalent thanks to the energy overcharge. If you remember, because of the energy overcharge, sentry-based openers did increase in every single matchup. I say every matchup, not against Zerg, just because it was unnecessary, because they were already opening up Stargate anyway. So we didn't see sentries against Zerg, but we saw sentries against Protoss, against sentry-based openers, very common, very standard, and against Terran as well. Why? Because of hallucinations. I think it was thanks to the energy overcharge, they would have consecutive back-to-back. I think it was 3. I think it was 2, and then by the time the second hallucination ran out, the third hallucination would be available. So you'd get 3 hallucination scouts across the map to be able to see everything that your opponent's doing, to be able to confirm. There are some niche instances where if the opponent is good enough, they can deny the scout and try to intercept the hallucination, but those are few and far between. Those cases are few and far between. Even players like Clem would struggle to do that, for example, to be able to deny the scout and to hide anything. And this is an issue, as again, typically StarCraft is meant to be a game of, in a way, incomplete information, or you have to fight for that information, right? It's like hiding and scouting, and that's all a part of the game. But for Protoss, it has been very easy to do so, and that has taken away a lot of strategy, a lot from a lot of these matchups. So that's also something that we expect to be changed. I think I was on board with Gabe's change. I think he was suggesting at the time to reduce the duration, to obviously increase the cost of hallucinations, but to reduce its duration, and to maybe even reduce the vision that hallucinations would actually provide as well. And maybe that would be taken into consideration. We'll get into it though. As first things first, energy overcharge grants has been reduced from 100 to 50 energy. So now it's half as good as it once was. Of course, we're still not moving. We're not like getting rid of it and reintroducing shield battery overcharge, thankfully. Still have energy overcharge, but we're going to be tweaking it. It's going to be a little bit less effective. So from 100 down to 50. Likewise, the cooldown has been reduced from 60 seconds to 45. So you can now use it more regularly, but again, it is giving you less energy. So there's that, at least to compensate a little bit here. And that is going to impact how many hallucinations sentries have. That is going to impact how many storms High Templar have as well. So all in all, I think most people would agree that this is a good change moving forward, just because of how oppressive and how dominant the NG overcharge has been over the past almost year of play. Moving down, mothership HP has been reduced from 350 to 300. Now, the reasoning for this is also because of a previous change. If you remember, a big thing that did occur, I think it was last year as well, maybe 2 patches ago, not just 1 patch ago, was the mothership. They removed the ability for it to be abducted. For a long time, the mothership was a meme. It was -400 in ZVP because it would be the target to be abducted, and they removed the ability to abduct the mothership. But the offset, the conclusion, or I should say, what occurred as a result of that, is that motherships now never die. Now, because they can no longer be abducted, if controlled well and at the highest level, and even at slightly lower levels, like you can control it well enough to be able to preserve it, keep it back, and for it not to ever really go down, and for its presence to be persistent throughout the entirety of the late game as well. It's now a very powerful tool. They also, if you remember, increase like its damage output. They overall just buffed the mothership in a lot of ways. Here they're going to be making it a little bit weaker. They're going to be reducing its HP and its shields. This will make it a little bit more vulnerable. They're still not letting you abduct it, but now there's a higher chance that you can actually bring it down and actually punish a player for mismicroing, or for being out of position, or for overextending with their mothership, which I will say is a good thing. Likewise, the movement speed has been reduced, so this also goes along those lines, where now the mothership requires a lot more attention. Now it's a little bit more fragile, now it's a little bit slower, so now it does require a little bit more control and a little bit more care taken from the Protoss players using the mothership. So that's going to be some changes moving forward. Scrolling down, we have a Psystorm. Of course. So already, I should put things into context, already we do have a nerf in the sense of NG overcharge. So already we're going to be seeing less storms. So that's already less storms are going to be seen. But now the storm itself has been changed. We do see the damage has been cut in half from from 10 damage to 5 damage per tick. So it has been reduced in damage. But if you recall, very quickly, when it came to the original changes, it was the damage was reduced and the duration was increased, and that was it, right? That was the only changes. First, it was just 2 changes. It was damage halved, duration increased, and testing was done. And over the couple of days that PTR was live, everyone was like, "This is garbage." like Storm now does nothing. I think it was Sal, right? It was Upper Tree. Sal, there was a clip going around where he was testing and he had Marines standing in storms and the medevacs were out healing the damage of the storm. it was yeah, that it did go viral for Sal, so shout out to Sal, and it was brutal. So they clearly went too far there, right? By reducing the damage and by increasing duration, like that was not the way to go. It was one step too far. 4 days later, bam, hey, they were listening. They were like, okay, you're correct. We went too far. Let's bring it back. And they brought it back. It's crazy. So Psystorm still does less damage per tick. That is true. But they have increased the radius. It's now a massive storm. The storm itself does cover a wider area of effect. Likewise, the duration of the storm looks like it did increase as well. And as we do see the radius increase, of course, the period reduced as well, and the period count increased from 6 to 12. So Storm now has changed quite a bit here. Yes, it does less damage, but because it's so much bigger, because the radius is larger, the overall circumference of the storm means that units that are getting caught in the storm are actually standing in it a lot longer, and it's going to be affecting them for a lot longer as well as they attempt to get out of the storm. I would say coming into this change is it does, I've already said this before on stream, it does feel like this was a knee-jerk reaction because in the first change that they had, they nerfed it too much. So here in their amendment change, I would say they buffed it too much. So I think they went too far one way, and then they went too far the other way. And again, as I expressed earlier, I'm confident that they're gonna find a nice balance in the middle. That's what, because right now there's a lot of people that are now freaking out of how good Storm is. Again, I'm pretty sure there's going to be more iteration specifically for Storm, just like I'm pretty sure there's going to be more iteration for Microbial Shroud as well, for some of these changes where they can find that kind of sweet spot that they're looking for. So again, I do expect to see more changes for this, but right now the Storm is actually quite strong and quite powerful. Now, my big concern for Storm, this actually is going to tie into TLMC, into the Team Liquid map contest. I said it before, and I don't have permission. Yeah, technically I have permission, but I want to wait for the TLMC's final judging to conclude and to be made public. Basically, I do want to create either a separate video or maybe next PondCast go over the judging process of TLMC and at least my criteria and how I was judging maps and what I was looking for and what I'm trying to push regarding the current state of meta, regarding the current state of StarCraft, and what I'm kind of looking for, I should say, when it comes to an upcoming map pool. I'm comfortable discussing all that, being transparent with that. I want to talk about it, but as I mentioned, I think tomorrow is when Wax, they're going to be releasing the refined and filtered TLMC finalists. For those who are curious, I was basically a part of the initial judging phase where there was almost 100 maps, and based on our feedback, those 100 maps are going to be whittled down to 16, and then those are the maps you're going to be voting for. So we'll get to that later.
Are you saying that the Wax actually, he has the result and he's waiting exactly for the end of the podcast to release the list?
He's aware of the meme. As soon as the podcast ends, they're gonna release the finalists for TLMC, and then we can't talk about it.
You are laughing, but I would not be surprised if it was true. Why? I wouldn't put it past Wax to do the meme.
Let's go. So we'll get to that. But what I'm okay talking about here is something that I was looking for, something that I was something that I was putting in a bit of a negative light, or that I was pushing against. There we go. Something I was pushing against was maps that were a little bit too turtle friendly. Maps that are easy to get a 5th, 6th, and even there were some maps where you could easily get up to 7 bases. It was crazy, like easily just turtle up, defend, and set up on 7 bases. It was crazy. Just hyper defensive play would be favored on maps like that, and that is something that I pushed against because in general I don't think that's something that people are that's healthy for the game. People don't like playing it, people don't like watching it. These more turtle heavy styles that we're seeing on certain maps in PvZ and in TvZ, it's just not something that people enjoy too much, and that I would want to see less of moving into the new map pool, for example. And maps, they do actually impact certain game states like that, for sure, 100%. Now my concern discussing the Storm change here is that increasing the size of Storm makes it a stronger zoning tool, and that would actually increase, and that would actually help foster turtle heavy play. Right now we're already seeing that. Right now, specifically in PvZ, you see it a lot with Classic, you see it with Max Packs, you even see it with Hero now as well, where after a certain point in the mid game, if the Zerg player survives set aggression, or if things die down, what do? They back off, they turtle up on 4 bases, they work towards Sky Toss, and then they work towards a 5th base and max out, right? That is the current play style, the current meta of mid to late game EVP. Of most games that kind of go in that direction. That is why we see a lot of all-ins currently from Zerg, and that's big because they're trying to stop that from happening, at least. They're trying, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes not so much. If Storm has increased radius and increased size, then it's going to be a stronger tool in regards to zoning, in regards to pushing back an army, in regards to turtling, defending, and again, fostering that more turtle heavy style. That is my big concern, so I'm not too fond of the idea of increasing the size like this, because it is going to make it easier for Protoss players to be that defensive, to turtle up, to weather the storm, if you will, no pun intended, and to just survive and max out on Sky Toss. So that is my big concern there, just because, as I mentioned before, that's something that personally I don't think is healthy for the game. That's my opinion, of course. Ideally, I do look for more active playstyles, more aggressive playstyles. I'll be getting back to this point later on in regards to the Terran changes, because there are also some changes there that do benefit turtle-heavy styles, which is not a good thing in my opinion. But that is something that has to be brought into consideration in regards to specifically the size of Storm. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. But that is something that they're kind of moving towards in regards to how they want to change Storm, which in my opinion is a bit of a concern. Scrolling down, we do have the Dark Templar change. Dark Templar blink attack delay reduced from 0.75 to 0.25. So now there's less of a delay when it blinks. It's not instant, but it's still reduced delay. This is something that some players are pushing towards, and sure, it does mean that DT is going to be more effective when it comes to harassing. When it comes to harassing in PvT specifically, it's going to impact all matchups for sure. I say all matchups. It's blink DTs are rarely seen against Zerg and rarely seen against Protoss in PvP. It's mainly a tool against Terran, and yeah, this is going to be more of an effective tool, I should say, for harassing Dark Templar in PvT. Now, the other big change, we went on a big tirade about vision and about scouting earlier, and we were talking specifically about hallucination scouts and how oppressive they were and how easy it was to scout. Well, now we have less energy to give a sentry, so there's going to be a little bit less hallucinations because of that, true, but I did not expect this. I thought they were just going to target the sentry, target the energy, target the overcharge. They took it a step further, and they also decided to target the observer. This is one of those other big, bold moves. Like, I mentioned earlier in regards to Microbial Shroud, how, like, it takes balls to, like, change Microbial Shroud in this way, to change it so much, which will impact so much of the game. Here, this is almost on that same level, where to have the balls to make it so observers now get revealed, like, that is, okay, Blizzard, let's go. I'm like, that's crazy. So now, observers are still cloaked, but now if they turn into surveillance mode, which is their like siege mode, so if observers siege up, now they are revealed. Now you no longer need detection to spot the observer if they're in that revelation mode, if that in that observer mode. That is a bold move. If you remember, I think people were looking to go the opposite direction in regards to quality of life. So this was a separate discussion that was had, which is true in regards to Protoss, is that over the years, Protoss, the Protoss race has gotten a lot of quality of life changes that that for whatever reason were given to Protoss, but were not given to Zerg and Terran. You could argue that this is one of the reasons why I think most people would agree that Protoss is an easier race to get into, just because there are some of those things that do help, that are a little bit friendly to a Protoss player when it comes to having limited, control, limited attention. There are a couple of those changes, which are one, High Templar, right? High Templar having an auto attack means that now it is harder to aim move them into an army, because previously, if there was some miscontrol, the High Templar would move forward and would die as a result, right? Because it would move forward in front of the army. Now, because the auto attack doesn't really do any damage, or it does damage, but that's not what it's about. It's about keeping the High Templar at range, right? It's a quality of life change. Another such change was the Observer. The Observer having a siege mode means that when you F2, when you move the whole army, all you have to do is make sure your observers are siege mode and they don't follow the army with that F2, right? So it makes it a little bit more F2able. As a result, they also did that with the Overseer. True, the Overseer also have surveillance mode, and in my opinion, I think it would have been correct to have done something similar with like the Raven, right? For the Raven to have like a surveillance mode, and also to go all the way and to give Ravens an auto attack, so Ravens don't automatically push forward when attacking. Likewise for Infestors as well, to have an auto attack, just like blanket across the board, just be in the same place, right? Or take it away from all of them. One or the other. It's kind of weird that it's in between, where like Protoss has some things, the other races don't. It's kind of weird that it's like, kind of like on a case by case basis like that, when I don't think it's quite necessary to do so. But that's something that's been happening. Now, instead of, going the opposite direction and giving those quality of life changes to Zerg and Terran, they're like, you know what, let's take that away from Protoss a little bit here. And now you have the risk of, if you want to siege up your observer, well, now you get punished. Now it's easy. Now it's going to be shut down. Now it will die. And what this means is now Protoss players are going to have that extra APM, that extra attention, that extra control to actually keep their observers where they need to be. No longer can you set them and forget them, right? Like now suddenly this is going to make it a little bit more difficult here to control said Protoss army and to control said observers. Now observers are going to be disincentivized, or players are going to be disincentivized from sieging up those observers, which means they are going to be more prone to F2, and if they're in the same army, to be moved with the army as well. So this is going to be taking away some of that quality of life, which I don't think is a bad thing. As I mentioned, for me, it was either one or the other, right? Either you give all the quality of life to all the races, or you just take it away. And they've kind of decided to take it away, right? Which I don't know if that's like the best move to go for. Like, again, this is going to negatively impact lower league players. And I think benefiting all the lower league players is probably a better thing to do, right? Like, just help them all. But this is going to make it a little bit more difficult here. Which, again, might not be a bad thing, just because we said it earlier, right? Now, talking about the balance of the game, talking about issues in certain matchups, was how easy it was to scout. We spoke about it already in regards to hallucinations and sentries, and with that, observers now going to be less effective because they're not going to be sieged up. They're going to be seeing less. Now there's a higher chance that the observers are going to be missing army move-outs and missing drops as well. So they are targeting the ability for Protoss to scout in more ways than one, not just taking away some hallucinations, but also targeting the Observer as well, which I do think that the Observer was very, very strong in PvT. Very often you'd even see you would see players like Clem and Björn and Maru spot Observers and snipe them, but you would also see them miss it, to be honest. You'd also see them miss it just as often, where they fail to scout. They scan, they barely miss the Observer, they don't spot it, they believe they're safe, they go for a drop, it gets seen by the Observer, and the drop gets shut down. They get contained. And this also led into the issue in PvT, where it was very, very difficult for Terran players to be active in the mid game because of just how oppressive the Protoss was, because of their vision, because they would see any kind of move out, any kind of drop play, and they would just deny it just like that. So I would say this is definitely a good thing. Again, it is going to make it more difficult now to actually maintain vision as a Protoss player, which is not a bad thing, but again, it is going to be hurting those lower league players as well. That's just something to consider. That's going to be like a byproduct of this, which again may not be a bad thing actually, but is going to be occurring. Likewise, surveillance mode does increase its vision from 13, from 13 to 15, essentially. So it's going to have increased vision. Now, where this is still going to be useful is going to be PvP. PvP, I actually brought this up earlier in regards to how the game can sometimes end. We spoke of this when bringing up the Spire changes and the Muta changes, but in PvP, detection is also crucial in regards to Dark Templar. DTs can end the games, so and again, there's going to be a little bit less anti-air, especially on your side of the map. So siege mode is still going to have its niche places where you're going to want to siege it up to actually have vision on your side to scout for something like Dark Templar, like DTs. Likewise, it's also going to be used to help shut down Banshees. Now you can siege it up. It has extra vision, extra detection, and easier to shut down Banshees as well. I say easier, it's gonna still be, used in certain cases defensively, but now offensively, it's most likely not going to be done unless you wish to lose the observer. There are cases where maybe the observer is moving in and you need to see what's happening in the main base, and you can see like Marines moving in position to scan, so you just siege up just to get that vision, then you lose the observer anyway. It'll have some niche uses here and there, but it is a big change. It is definitely a big change. And the final Protoss change is for the Disruptor. For the Disruptor as well. That is going to be the Purification Nova. And this makes sense just because we are adjusting a lot of splash damage here. Now, the problem is that Storm is actually going to be, I would say, right now at least, improved. And that right now it's actually quite powerful. But in a world where it is weaker, in a world where Storm is maybe a little bit less effective, that's where Disruptors have to step up their game a little bit to be more of a viable option here for Protoss. So the radius is going to be increased from 1.5 to 1.75, which is going to make it more effective. Now, this is a change that I'm okay with. The reasoning for this is, if you remember, the Disruptor was nerfed last patch. What was the nerf? Now it no longer one-shots certain units, like the Marauder, like roaches as well, right? Like the Disruptor, the Purification Nova, was already weakened quite a bit in the previous patch, and they're not reverting those changes. They're not making it do damage again and one-shot units again. It's still less. It's still less unforgiving, right? There's still counterplay available for it, but now they're going to be increasing its radius to make it more effective and to make it more of a viable option. Transitioning into the late game, right? Transitioning away from Colossus, away from High Templar into Disruptors. That is going to be a more viable option, and potentially even just opening Disruptor as well instead of Colossus. So I'm okay with that if we end up, again, if the purpose of this is to reduce the effectiveness of Storm. I would say they failed to do that yet, but if the end goal is to make Storm less effective, then to counterbalance that, ideally you do want to make something like Disruptors more effective. And I'm okay with them doing this to the Disruptor instead of the Colossus, as I don't think the Colossus needs to be buffed in any way, shape, or form. But Disruptors are seen less than they were, so I feel like it's fair to try to increase the effectiveness of Disruptors and make them more viable. The other big change, of course, is Stasis Ward. Stasis Ward duration reduced from 170 seconds to 90 seconds. This is a change that personally I can get behind. So Stasis Traps, a couple of things. They're quite prevalent in PvP, quite prevalent, and you also see them a little bit against Terran as well. I say a little bit because Stargate openers are not very common anymore in PvT. Stargate openers did die out, and now they're a very, very rare sight. Whenever we do see them, Stasis Traps, they do factor in, but for the most part, I would say that this is mainly a PvP change. Now, this is not going to be affecting like harassing Stasis Traps, referring to Stasis Traps in mineral lines. Duration does not really the duration doesn't really matter for that. Remember, this is the duration of the ward itself, not the effectiveness of the spell, not how long a unit is stasised. Bear that in mind. So basically, when you would plant a stasis trap, it would be there for 170 seconds. It would last insanely long, and it would basically be there to help defend and help maintain a position and give you vision as well. That's another thing this did. It gave you vision. It gave you a ward out there that saw quite a large portion of the map, actually, and would notify you if anything came in and would punish anything moving in as well. So this is another, I would say, nerf to vision, but also this is going to be impacting PvP a lot. If you've been watching PvP as of late, you would know that Stargate play has been very prevalent in PvP. as a tech choice, and MaxPax specifically has been very fond of it. And we have seen MaxPax be so oppressive with stasis traps to set up stasis wards aggressively at the main attack paths, at any flanking attack paths on the main army as well. And you know this if you've been watching the channel for any period of time here, casting hero versus MaxPax, the amount of stasis traps that hero would take to the face is insane, because there would be like 6 or 7 there'd be stasis fields out there. There'd be fields full of stasis traps because they last so long. Not just that, but because of the energy overcharge. I should emphasize, this is why we've seen a lot more Stargate and Oracle play, is because of the energy overcharge. Because of that, Oracles have more energy. Because of that, there have been more stasis traps. So I should have led with that. So my apologies if you got lost in the weeds a little bit. If you're like, what? Like Oracles and PvP? Why is that new? Why is that different? Because of the energy overcharge, now Oracles are more effective in PvP because they have more energy. We have been seeing a lot more stasis traps as a result of that, and pointing to MaxPax as an example of that, as he is very fond of Oracle and stasis trap play in PvP, to the point where, again, we've seen a lot of Protoss players struggle against that. Reducing the duration of how long a stasis ward lasts is 90 seconds, almost cutting it in half. I can get behind here, just because it was insane just how many stasis traps there would be. Already there's going to be less, because if you remember, NG overcharge is already being nerfed. That is going to be already reducing the amount of stasis traps out there, but this will reduce it even further, which again, I don't think is a bad thing. For the most part, I believe this is mainly going to be targeting PvP. As I mentioned before, the duration of this and the amount of stasis traps, this isn't really too impactful against Terran or against Zerg either. It was mainly a Protoss thing, especially because for Zerg, like, you'd typically be leading with a Ling anyway, right? You'd send out a Zergling ahead of time anyway, and you would bait out the stasis traps, right? So it's a little bit different. In PvZ, it was less of an issue. This is more of a PvP change. Oh, meanwhile, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Delphin? Oh god. God, thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. Do appreciate it. And also thank you so much, Adobe One Kenobi as well for the raid. God, thank you so much. Sorry, I haven't been able to catch up with the chat as we're about to get into the Terran changes, but hold on, we'll see if anyone was discussing anything. David Kim is back. True. After Battle Aces, after the tragic failing of Battle Aces, they got him back on board. Cap, of course.
That would explain a lot, actually.
No, we're just memeing. Don't spread that around.
No, it is just a meme.
Okay, we'll try to fix any enemy race. True. It would also be impactful, I guess, in team games, is what you're getting at. True. Buenas noches, Adobe. Buenas noches. Do you think reducing energy costs would be fair as they're reducing the time of the stasis trap? I don't think so, just because, once again, as I mentioned before, if you reduce the energy cost, that is going to be impacting the other matchups, whereas specifically, I would go as far as to say that reducing the time of that stasis ward duration is specifically for PvP. And that is targeting that matchup because that is the matchup where that was most prevalent, where it mattered more to actually have that field of stasis trap set up. That was less impactful against Terran and Zerg. And if you reduce the energy cost, then that would negatively impact the other matchups. So I would push against that because that would have ramifications for PvZ and PvT, which I feel like is unintended when specifically this change is targeted towards PvP. I would bear that in mind when it comes to proposing like an offset or proposing like a buff to that, or a way to offset that is just, the purpose, right? The purpose of the nerf and what it's targeting, and the consequences of what your proposition would entail, because it would affect the other matchups, whereas that's not meant to be a factor, right? As we're now getting into the Terran changes. Okay, so the Terran changes. Siege Tank. Siege Tank can no longer be abducted when in siege mode. This is the other, I would say this is out of left field change. This caught me a little bit off guard. Now, if you remember, one thing that I pushed against from some of the changes so far was the storm change. Why? Because increasing the radius of the storm does make it a more powerful zoning tool, which makes it easier to turtle up and be defensive. And if you recall, I spoke about how in general, I think that's a negative aspect of the game. I think that's a negative thing that they're going to be pushing for, and that's something that I want to push against when it comes to the meta and the state of play, is promoting turtle heavy styles. Speaking of turtle heavy styles, I mean, this is what this is going to be benefiting, is mech. Now, there's a reason for this change, and the reason I think is because mech is going to be nerfed in the new patch. What's the nerf to mech? Well, they're fixing the cyclone. Right? Like, it's not listed in the changes because it isn't a change, it's a bug fix. The cyclone is going to be fixed finally, which means battle mech is going to be less effective. So my assumption as to why they are buffing the siege tank and not allowing it to be abducted is that they want to make they want to give mech something to make it more viable. And the problem with buffing mech is they can't really touch the cyclone because they've already seen what happens, right? They've seen what happens if they mess with it. The cyclone is a problem unit, and if you mess with it too much, we've experienced, like, even before this, we've seen mass cyclone meta. We've seen TVT mass cyclone. That was last year. That was, or if not the beginning of the year. That was last year. It was last year. It was a dark time, just seeing Cyclone versus Cyclone. Likewise, we saw a meta of mass Cyclone against Zerg. Like, Cyclone is like a trouble unit. It's something that has to be handled with a lot of care, with a lot of delicacy. Or you have to be delicate, I should say, with it, because clearly, very easily, because of how the Cyclone works, because of its mobility, because of its lock-on, because it's automatic, like, there's just... things can go very wrong very quickly if you mess with the cyclone too much. Like, we've learned that we've seen so many changes, so many patches to the cyclone. So if their goal is to buff mech in some way, they can't touch the cyclone again. They know that just nothing but bad things happens there. So what are you gonna do? I would suggest what they're already looking to do a little bit later on in the patch notes, and that is make Banshee support more viable and potentially get into Sky Terran. But for them to make this change, I don't think is a good thing, because one, I understand that they want to try to offset now the nerfed Cyclone, and they want to give mech something to work with here. But as I mentioned before, this is going to be benefiting two different things, two specific scenarios. One is traditional tank-based mech against Zerg. The other is late-game bio against Zerg. Because in the late game, when you go Marine, Marauder, Tank, you eventually get into Ghost production, you eventually go Ghost, Mech, Liberator. That is like the ideal late game in the late game against Zerg. And this is going to just be benefiting that turtle-heavy style. If you know anything about late-game ZBT, you would know, especially in years past, the goal was to turtle up on 5 bases, where you would just throw down sensor towers, planetaries, wall up with Liberators, wall up with tanks, and you would just turtle up and hunker down on 5 bases and then slowly get a 6th base. And the game would slow down to a crawl. And this is going to be buffing that kind of style, because now there's going to be one less way to actually break these siege lines and try to be aggressive as a Zerg player in late game ZVT. Likewise, this also is going to benefit just regular mech and their ability to turtle up and also get into that 4-base setup and eventually 5-base setup as well, as again they're taking one of the tools away to break a siege line. So I would say this is a straight up negative change. I mentioned before that, like, the other change that I was against was just increasing the size of Storm the way that they are, but here as well, removing the ability to abduct tanks is again promoting a playstyle that I don't think is healthy for the game. Like, that's the issue that I have with it, is that this is just benefiting turtle heavy style. This is just giving players more of a reason to be more defensive and to stay on in their corner of the map until they max out, until they get into that kind of game state. So this is something that I would hope is removed moving forward. That's probably like the one thing that I'm concerned by here. The other change is going to be the Viking cost. Viking cost reduced from 150.75 to 125.75. This is another change that I've heard from other Terran players that they don't really know why is here. Specifically, in my mind, this is going to be for TVP. We spoke about how their goal should be to be nerfing the High Templar and nerfing Storm, which means they're going to be promoting Colossus play most likely again. And this is going to make it easier for Terran to deal with Colossus. Specifically, this should make it easier to switch into Viking production, but Terran players weren't having a hard time making that switch, is what I've been hearing from other top Terrans. It's like switching into Vikings and going into reactored starport production to deal with a Colossus transition, like that wasn't much of an issue. And there was obviously the counterplay there as well. This is going to make it easier to do that, as now it's cheaper to get into those Vikings. And that's going to be one thing. The other thing this is going to impact is TVT. True. Vikings and Sky Terran is very prevalent in TVT. But reducing the minerals, I don't know if that really matters too much in TVT, to be honest. Like, just making that cheaper, making it easier to get into, it just might make Sky Terran a little bit of an easier transition. Again, if you don't know this, TVT, late game TVT is all about Sky Terran, all about Viking, Raven, BC. That's what you want. That's what you want to be getting into. And a lot of Terran players in TVT have been rushing into that kind of style as well. Rushing into a second starport, rushing into a third starport. So this will make that even easier as a transition point. Not by too much, but a little bit easier as well. Which again is an interesting change that they have decided to go for. The other change they went for is Drilling Claws. Drilling Claws effectiveness increased from 1.07 to 0.71. Basically, the time it takes to actually burrow. I would say this is probably a good thing. I think a lot of people were expecting a Widowmine buff. I was expecting maybe something a little bit different here when it comes to, if you remember, the proposed change was to allow Widowmines to be invisible again with the upgrade, and maybe make the upgrade a little bit more accessible. Sorry, I think it was make it invisible with the armory again, if you recall, which was the case before, and then they got rid of it, and then they nerfed the Widowmine in many other ways. And again, I think we all expected a change to the Widowmine. Specifically, what that would entail would be the effectiveness of mine play in the mid game of TVP, which I think most people would agree is where Terran players struggling the most. Terrans, they do struggle in mid-game TVP quite a bit, and bringing back the effectiveness and the strength of Widowmines would help that quite a bit when it comes to gaining and maintaining map control and trying to take that away from the Protoss. But that's not quite what we're getting here. Drilling Claws is going to be better, true. That's all we're getting. So I'm a little bit surprised. I was expecting something more here in terms of the Widowmine buff. So that caught me off guard, is what I will say. I was expecting something more. Meanwhile, the other change here, High Flight Rotors. This one also caught me a little bit off guard. I don't know how I don't think I'm against it, but it's just a little bit weird. So if you know anything about TVP, you would know as of late, Hyperflight Rotors has been an option that Terran players have been going for. If you haven't been watching much TVP as of late, you may not know this, but players like Bjorn, players like Clem, players like Maru, instead of going into Cloak Banshee as a opener, they've been going into High Flight Rotor Banshee. Now, why is this? So, if you know anything about the meta of TVP currently, you would know that Protoss players have been more defensive. Protoss players, they've been delaying their third. They've been delaying their third base because of the prevalence of all-ins a couple of months ago. Because there were so many all-ins in TVP, they stopped taking a fast third base. They started staying on 2 bases, going 3-gate blink, robo, extra gases as well. Sometimes they even go 2-base storm before getting their third base. That's just how safe Protoss players have been. Now, something that I mentioned there was fast robo. Because they've been going for fast robos, they've been getting faster observers as well. Because they've been getting faster observers, Banshee play and Cloak Banshee play has been less effective. It has been less effective, and that's why we've been seeing a reduced in Cloak Banshee play. But what I will say, again, is that certain top Terran players like Clem, like Bjorn, and like Maru have started going instead of Cloak into Hyperflight Rotor Banshees instead, which has been really exciting. And the goal there is, one, they didn't get Cloak because they don't need it, because there's already going to be detection, so it's kind of a waste of an upgrade. And what it means is that now their Banshees are more microable, and these players, if they have the attention for it, if they have the APM for it, they're able to gain value over time, out-control, out-position the defending Stalkers, and get a lot of value over time, keep and maintain those Banshees, and actually get more value over the course of the game by killing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 probes over the course of the game as well. So this has already been happening. So that's why this change is a little bit weird. We've already been seeing this, but it's possible that they want maybe like the greater Terran community to embrace it a little bit more. They're like, hey, all these other guys are doing it already. And they're like nudging the rest of the Terrans over. They're like, don't you want to do this too? That's what this feels like. So it's kind of a weird it's a weird buff, because Terran players are already moving in that direction anyway. This is kind of like nudging them along and being like, this is what you should be doing. Like this, you should do what they're doing. Go ahead. You have more reason to do so. That's what this change feels like more than anything. Just because it was already like people, they were again like this change was already happening. Now it's kind of pushing them into that change even further. Now, the downside of this is that, I say the downside, this was also prevalent when it comes to Battle Mech, when it comes to going Banshee into Hellion Cyclone, and you'd have like a hit squad of 5, 6, 7, 8 Banshees, and their goal would be to snipe High Templar. But that's going to be a little bit different now because Battle Mech is less effective because of the Cyclone. So, because of that, Mech probably isn't going to be as viable against Protoss anymore. If you haven't been watching TVP, we have seen more Mech versus Protoss. We've seen a lot of Mech versus Protoss recently, actually. Clem has been playing Mech. Mara's been playing Mech. Kira's been playing Mech. Like, they've all been, except for Bjorn. Bjorn hasn't, but everyone else has been playing Mech against Protoss. And Speed Banshees were a part of that as well. So they're going to be buffing that, but they're also removing the Cyclone. So, I say they're making it less effective. So, I do think that this fix of the Cyclone is most likely going to be removing Mech from TVP, from that equation. It was quite prevalent for a couple of months, basically since EWC, but now with this change, now with what they're doing to the Cyclone, that probably won't be a thing anymore. I say probably because, there's still going to be players like Gumiho and Ryung embracing Mech whenever they can, but it should be a lot less effective. And the final change here is Liberator Sight. Liberator Sight reduced from 10 to 9. This is essentially the Liberator can attack further than it can see, just like the tank. So this will require the Terran player to actually have a unit ahead or scan ahead to have vision to be able to shoot and to be able to make full use of Liberator range. I do actually like this change. I do like this. I think a lot of people throughout the history of the Liberator have spoken about how oppressive Liberator range is. That's why it got nerfed a little bit ago. I think even in the last patch they proposed a bigger nerf, and I think it got reverted, trying to get rid of the oppressiveness of Liberator range, of ranged Liberators, I should say. And this is another attempt to do so. I do think that this is in the correct direction, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this is negatively impacting when they do get the upgrade. When Liberator range is actually researched, Liberator range, it can actually siege up much further than what we're seeing here. And I want to say like half of the radius or half of the circumference even of the attack area of the Liberator. It can't even see now because of this. So it's kind of in a weird place. It's probably going to be adjusted. I would say that it's probably going to be adjusted, but I do like the idea of them requiring vision to make full use of that Liberator once they get the upgrade. But we'll see how they do adjust it moving forward. And that is the final changes. I say the final changes, there's a lot of bug fixes as well. A lot of bug fixes in regards to the Cyclone, in regards to, just so many bugs that were affecting and plaguing the game. This is another thing that's really exciting, is that they're taking the attention, they're taking the time, I should say, to be attentive to actually fix all these bugs, which is something that I did not expect. Something that I and many people did not really expect moving forward here. So really big changes, or really nice changes, really big bug fixes coming into the game. Bugs that have been plaguing the game for years at this point are finally being addressed. Crazy. Crazy, might be crazy. Of course, one of them being the Cyclone as well. One of them being the Cyclone. Now, something that I did not quite touch, actually, in regards to Microbial Shroud that I wanted to get back to is them taking away the ability to abduct the tank is going to be interesting because of the Microbial Shroud change. Microbial Shroud, in its ability to reduce the ranged attack damage by 50%, does mean that Zerg players are going to be potentially able to push into siege lines and brute force their way through with Microbial Shroud. Obviously, there's going to be counterplay in regards to snipes and EMPs, right? If the infestors get caught out, if you don't have Microbial Shroud, you won't be able to do so. But that is going to be an alternate way now for Zerg players to break a siege line, and that's, I think, of course, by design. Like, I think that's what they want, right? They want to give Zerg players an option and a way to break these siege lines, not just with abductions and with blinding clouds, but with Microbial Shroud as well, to be able to force their way through these siege lines and break through. It is a bold decision, a bold move, I would have to see it in action to see how effective it is, right? It's like, does it matter? I should emphasize that, hey, 50% damage is great and all. I mean, Ling Bane is still not going to survive many tank volleys. Like, like you can have that reduction, set up some microbial shrouds, send in some Ling Bane, and it's still going to be shut down by walls of tanks. So this is so in my scenario, in my mind, I'm thinking of ultras more often than not. I'm thinking of how effective are ultras going to be at breaking siege lines with microbial shroud. And whether they can break through, especially considering that, of course, it's not just going to be tanks. There's going to be ghosts involved. There's going to be snipes. This is the kind of situation that I want to see, right, in the PTR. I want to see this in the PTR. I want to see, is it enough? Is it not enough, right? It's like, does it need to be increased? Does it not? Does it have to be changed? Do we have to look at the tank adjustment once again? I mean, we'll see, right? That's the purpose of the PTR. And as I mentioned before, I would not be surprised if, for me, microbial shroud gets changed, the storm gets changed, the siege tank change gets reverted. Like, there's definitely things here that I can see changing, adjusting, and they might even add some things. True. Like, they might just straight up come out of left field and come in with their own like added amendments here to the patch. So yeah, and that's what's most exciting to me, is that there is a chance that they do that, right? That they're cooking up their own ideas and they're cooking up their own changes, and they decide to add them in a couple of days' time, or even right as soon as we end the stream, just like last time. It's possible. It's possible. They just do it right after the stream ends. God damn it! Every time, happy every time. Yeah. Will the Tuna Cup be played in the PTR next week? Should be the next one after that, just because the next Tuna Cup is going to be a monthly finals. Monthly finals. So yeah, it's really interesting changes here. Again, some of these I still feel like are a little bit undercooked, and they're probably going to have to go back in, and they're probably going to have to be adjusted once again regarding the storm, regarding microbial shroud, regarding the tank, regarding some of these other changes. But overall, it is exciting. That is what I can say the most out of this. It's exciting to see that these changes are being made, that these are being proposed, and that most likely we're going to be seeing more changes to this PTR in the coming days, in the coming weeks. That is what I'm most excited for. So yeah, really cool, really exciting stuff. I don't think many people expected this much dedication. Like, I expected a patch. I didn't expect this much in the patch, though, for sure. Like, I expected like a couple of lines of text and that's it. We got more than a couple of lines, Pappy. That's a full page. That's that's crazy. Oh my god. So definitely exciting things to come moving forward in regards to the PTR, in regards to StarCraft 2. And of course, this is also like a bit of a downside, a bit of a negative aspect when it comes to judging maps, is that the PTR was announced in the days leading up to when we had to finish wrapping up our judging of the maps, and it's like, oh, the meta is going to change, right? Like right now, how I was judging maps and how I was kind of determining what was good, what wasn't, what was strong, what wasn't strong, like what I would have to look for, what I would have to look against, was all predetermined, and all it was all like decided by or educated by the current meta and the current state of play. But the meta is going to change, right? Like, things will change with this patch, and that is going to impact like how good defensive maps are, how weak defensive maps are, right? Like, is turtle play going to be an issue? If it is, then there's more of a reason to push back even further against turtle heavy styles, or maybe less so. Maybe if they remove some of these changes, and if there's less of a defensive setup there, maybe you want to incentivize that kind of play instead, right? Like, the reality is that the state of the game impacts what the map pool should look like, but we're not going to know what the state of the play, what the meta is going to look like, because it's all coming together at the same time. That's the biggest issue here, is that we're going to be getting a new map pool and the patch at the same time, so everything's going to be in flux, and it's going to make that transition a little bit messy, I feel. That's a concern I have moving forward. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't like push it back or anything like that. Is the reality of the situation. It's going to happen together regardless, and that's my concern moving forward. And I think we were advised, I'm okay saying this, as judges, we were like, the reality is we don't know which of these changes will go live at the end of the day. Like, by the time the PTR goes live, they might remove half of these changes and not actually go through with them. So we can't base like any of our judgments on the maps on any of this, because we don't know what's going to go through, what isn't going to go through. So we just have to go with the current meta and take that into account and hope for the best. So that's it's a bit of a shame that it clashed in such a way. Bit of a shame. Yeah. Specific, I think a more specific example actually is ARAXs. There are some maps that are really good for ARAXs that I was looking at in a negative light because of that. If you know anything about ZVT, you know that ARAXs are very prevalent at the moment. And one of the reasons why ARAXs are so prevalent is because banelings are less effective. Well, what's pushing through? Baneling change, right? We're gonna have a baneling HP upgrade or HP buff in the upcoming patch. Also, mutaplay is going to be more impactful as well, right? Like mutaplay is going to be more seen, more prevalent. And this is going to impact the dynamic in ZVT. This is going to impact the strength of ARAXs. So that's a more specific example here. I would say that ARAX is going to be less effective moving forward because Baneling is going to be more accessible, more viable as a way to shut that down, which means, looking back on it, I didn't have to be as harsh on maps that allowed for strong ARAXs because now there's better answers to an ARAX with a new patch. So that's like a more specific example of an issue with judging now. At least from my side of things, is specifically for that situation, for that scenario. There are other probably more specific examples as well that I would take into account. I think another one is blink play, right? There were some maps where the main base for Terran players was very accessible to blink play, right? To 4-gate blink stalker. And right now in the meta, I would say that Protoss players have a lot of flexibility with how they want to play and how they want, and they have a lot of momentum, especially in the early to mid game. But that might change moving forward. If that changes, maybe it won't be a bad thing if they have the option to pull off something like a 3-gate or a 4-gate blink to get into the opponent's main base. Right now, I would push against that, of course. Right now, I would say that this is not something that they need, but moving forward, maybe that's something that they should be able to make use of. But like retroactively, like I can't, like we can't do that, right? So that's like another example of how things may change in the meta and what should or shouldn't be in the map pool. So yeah, that's at least something that I was bringing up a little bit and thinking about in regards to judging the TLMZ maps. Again, there's probably more like specific examples of that. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that it's lined up in that way, but we'll deal with it. it's fine, Bobby. It's fine. Time to reevaluate everything. True. Also, thank you so much, Kanoya. Thank you so much for the raid. Gracias, Papi. Gracias. Do appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, that's gonna be us. Wrapping up the current PTR notes, but again, there are most likely going to be more changes in the future, and what I'm most excited by is those other changes, is how this PTR does changes evolve. I do think that it's on us, it's on the community to host as many events as we can on the PTR to test these changes. I did just say earlier, so I do apologize, the next Tuna Cup will not be on the PTR because the next Tuna Cup is a monthly finals, and it does make a little bit less sense for all of the weeklies to lead up to a monthly finals that is played on a different version of the game. So it feels a little bit weird to do that. So we're going to be wrapping up our monthly finals in the base game. Then after the monthly finals, then we'll start hosting all of our tournaments, including our amateur events, on the PTR. So that's the plan. So not this week, but next week. Next week should be on the PTR, and we should be, again, trying to provide as much feedback, as much testing as we can. I feel like that's on us. That's on all the other tournament organizers as well. So hopefully we can do that moving forward. Meanwhile, when it comes to other good news in regards to StarCraft 2 is the Chinese server. Now this is something that we have actually heard about, or at least I've heard about for quite a number of months from the Chinese scene, from the SC boys specifically, the SE boys, if you will, is that that there's a new Chinese client in the works. For those that don't remember, there was a bit of a breakdown in regards to the relationship between NetEase and Blizzard, and because of that, they broke their relationship, they broke their partnership, I should say, and a lot of Blizzard games in China stopped being accessible, and as a result, Blizzard, they lost the Chinese servers for StarCraft 2 alongside, for Diablo, for StarCraft as well. Like there was just a really rough negotiation between the two parties. I don't want to get too into detail. I think there's like other confirmed reporting as to an individual at Blizzard that was kind of the reason for that, maybe asking for too much and pushing for too much, and in the end, NetEase, they just pulled out. They just you can do whatever you want. We're done with this. But looks like now, after quite some time, they have been able to come together again and have been working together. I believe this was as of a couple of months ago. They renegotiated, they reformed their agreements, and they partnered up once again. And because of that, we have heard that we are getting new servers on the for StarCraft 2, new Chinese servers. Now, this is not necessarily about that. This is apparently they're going one step further. They're not just reintroducing the Chinese servers to StarCraft 2, but they're also actively working on those servers and also in other Blizzard games as well to update and to support those games instead of just as they are right now. That's what's most exciting here, is it looks like behind the scenes in the back end of StarCraft, of the client of StarCraft, NetEase are actually developing and working on the game itself. And it looks like they have plans to do so for StarCraft 2, for Warcraft 3 Reforged, and for Heroes of the Storm as well. So it looks like, again, NetEase, they're taking a bigger role. And the changes that they do, the updates that they apply to these games on the Chinese side of things may actually cross over into the international versions as well. And that is what is exciting, is that it looks like NetEase are pushing to actually support these games more than just providing servers, but actually creating content for these games as well. And apparently this was already done. I think in like Diablo, they had like some Chinese exclusive skins and things of that nature, like skins and other assets for the Chinese client or for the Chinese version, and they're taking it a little bit of a step further here as well, which is exciting just because that may benefit the international side of things, not just the Chinese side, which again is something that I don't think anyone expected. Like even when we heard about from SC Boy that, oh no, yeah, like the Chinese servers are coming back, like they're in talks and things are looking good, that they're doing even more than that. Looking to do even more than that, which is exciting for sure. I think a lot of people were talking about like when it comes to this announcement. I think a lot of people are bringing up Warcraft just because Warcraft 3 and World of Warcraft they're both really, really big in China, and that's kind of what they're going to be pushing for 100%. But SC2 is something that they're also interested in kind of like cultivating and improving as well, and working on in the back end. So yeah, really cool, really exciting stuff. It's still a little bit early as to what we can see coming out of it. I mean, the servers have still yet to go live. It's still being worked on. Once it does go live, I'm sure we'll have some more details as to what they've added to the game and what they've changed to the game as well. And yeah, it's definitely something to be excited about. Apparently, they've also been doing some exclusive like Overwatch 2 events and Overwatch 2 skins and things of that nature as well. Like again, this is just happening across the board for a lot, if not all, of Blizzard's games. So really cool things coming forward here from that side of things. Meanwhile, we do have some now updates from the esports side of things with hero. For those who don't remember, hero, he was on Twisted Minds up until like a month ago. Hero, he's been teamless. He's been teamless for quite some time, and that is tragic. Hero, he is arguably the best Protoss player in the world, if not top 2 Protoss player in the world. So for Hero to have been teamless for so long was a little bit heartbreaking to see one of the top players kind of on his own. But looks like finally someone has stepped in, and that is T1. T1 have stepped in and picked up Hero. T1, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the rebranding of SKT, right? It was SKT1 and now they're just T1.
Yes,
am I crazy?
This is SKT.
Yeah. So I do recall they did rebrand, and I think just to get rid of like the South Korean aspect of things to make it more international. So crazy that the ex-CJ boy is now an SKT boy. There you go. GG. What timeline are we in, Kuro? Oh my god. Could you imagine? Could you imagine a world where Pro League continued and SKT picked up Hero and CJ lost him?
No.
That'd be crazy.
No, I could
like,
not
that'd be
imagine.
insane.
CJ was married to Hero. I mean, particularly Coach Orion. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Both. Yeah, I still the image of hero getting massaged by both coaches lives rent free in my mind.
Yes,
okay?
unironically, that was the scene. For those who missed Pro League, that was unironically the scene because Hero was unquestionably the ace of the team. So if Hero needed anything, like the coaches were there, they were there for him.
They pampered him. They pampered him hard. So like the world that we live in, where he's now on SKT, is insane. It's crazy, but yeah, wow, like not quite full circle, but it's also really cool to see that he's on a Korean team as well. Like, just because, yes, sorry, I should talk about that. He's on a Kespa team, and Kespa pulled out.
Yeah,
right. Like that's a big deal. Actually,
things are happening in Korea, apparently.
Yeah, like that's a big deal. Winding it back, Kespa, the Korean Esports Association, they stepped away from StarCraft a long time ago, and it was a big deal. You know, Samsung Galaxy, CJ Entus, MVP, KT, SKT, Jin stuck with it, of course. They were the only ones that stuck with it. So much love to Jin, of course, for as long as they did. But yeah, all the Kespa teams, they pulled out. They more or less abandoned StarCraft for their own reasons, of course. You know, match fixing and all the scandals that were happening at the time was really unfortunate. But they pulled out and they never looked back. They for the most part, they never did look back, except for Jin. Once again, you know, much love to Jin, and they took it a step further. If you remember, they were behind sponsoring GSL. Sorry, not sponsoring GSL. They hosted the SSL, right? Their individual league. They're running Brood War tournaments as well. They ran their team for like 2 extra years. There was a lot of love from Jin, but all the other Kespa teams, they stepped away. So for a Kespa team, for SKT, or for now T1, to step in and pick up hero, that's huge, actually. Like, that's a big deal. Does that mean that the rest of the Korean teams follow suits? I wouldn't take it that far, but like, this opens the door. This opens the door for some of those older. Now, to be fair, I'll be honest. Is KT still a thing? Is CJ still a thing? Is Samsung still a thing? I think they are. I don't know. Because they're on StarCraft, I don't follow them. But assuming they are, then suddenly there is a chance that maybe they step back into the ring. Maybe with SKT, with the biggest of the Korean teams, picking up hero, maybe the others do decide to follow suit and do look to pick up some of these players again. I was meant to bring this up earlier. I apologize. I should bring it up now. The other reason why it was really big news for StarCraft to be getting a balance patch in such a way, and for it to be getting the attention that it is, and the dedication that it is from whoever's working at Blizzard, is EWC. Esports World Cup, one of the reasons why EWC took so long to announce StarCraft, one was the negotiations with ESL fell through. If you remember, ESL, they were pushing as hard as they could for a league. They wanted to continue EPT. That's what they wanted. They wanted to continue the ESL Pro Tour. They were doing everything they could to continue the ESL Pro Tour. EWC refused to do so. They refused to give them a league. That's why it took so long. That's why, and you could argue they took too long, but that's why it took so long to fully make the announcement, because basically ESL, they kept coming back with like new propositions, like just back again, you know, with like maybe this, like can we make this work? And in the end they couldn't, and in the end they had to settle for just, you know, what we got, right, which was like a qualifier at DreamHack, which was some qualification spots given to Stars, Agora, and the eventual EWC, and of course the GSL slots as well. But one of the reasons why EWC were unwilling to go further for a league and to push and to give StarCraft more was because of Blizzard. Specifically, was because the publisher of the game wasn't supporting the game. Something that EWC wanted was to work with not just the scene, not just the game. They wanted to work with the publisher. They wanted to work with the game developers to be able to promote and to push and to cultivate the Esports World Cup even more and even further. And with Blizzard looking to neglect their esports, referring to StarCraft, Overwatch, Hearthstone, because of what's been happening over at Blizzard, EWC were less willing to do so. From my understanding as well, like Blizzard, they were also pushing for a little bit more. They were like, hey, like if you want one thing, then you're gonna have to get it all, and there was just a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. But like this is one of the reasons why EWC were a little bit more hesitant, right? If you see a game that the developers themselves, the publisher themselves had abandoned, then it's like, do you really want to host this event at the Esports World Cup, right? Like there's less of a reason to do so. So looking back and winding it back to the proposed PTR changes, if Blizzard steps in again, if they start actually looking after the game, not just StarCraft, but also, if you remember, they've been doing the same thing with Warcraft 3, right? There was, I think it was last year, if not the beginning of this year, where Warcraft 3 Reforged got a big balance patch and they got a big update, and everyone got really excited for that as well. I think herO's, right? herO's, that was like on the back burner for a long time, right? That was like in like stasis mode, right? Where that hadn't received a balance patch in many, many years, and that recently changed as well. So Blizzard, now that they've been acquired by Microsoft, it took a while, but it does feel like now that Microsoft are taking over, now they've finally gone through all their filings, they finally kind of revised and gone through with like a comb, gone through like all the divisions and all of Blizzard, and now they're stepping in. Now like, hey, you have these IPs, now let's work on herO's. Now let's work on Warcraft 3. Now let's work on StarCraft 2. That's what it feels like. Obviously, I have no confirmation, but that's what it feels like from the outside looking in, is that finally, like that acquisition from Microsoft, now they're actually pushing through changes. Now they're actually pushing to promote and support their games. And now that's happening with Warcraft 3, with herO's, and now with StarCraft 2. And this is beneficial, not just for the games themselves, but now when a tournament organizer or when something like EWC look over at Blizzard, now it's like, oh, you're actually looking after these esports titles, you're actually looking after these games. Now I have more of a reason to partner with Blizzard to actually push through and, progress forward and actually push forward with EWC, including StarCraft 2 in the coming years. So that was something else that I wanted to bring up that is another beneficial and exciting thing about what's happening, is if Blizzard starts paying attention to StarCraft again, then other events and other organizers will start paying attention to StarCraft again as well. So it's all coming together and all coming hand in hand. It's crazy. So definitely exciting things to come. Obviously, this by no means confirms that we're going to be getting EWC next year. Again, at this point, we can safely assume that there will not be another EPT, another league, but there is still opportunities and still chances for us to be at EWC on an annual basis, and that's something that I'm at least hopeful for moving forward, especially after what's happening here with StarCraft, with the proposed patch. With Blizzard stepping back into a developer role, which is something that they haven't done in quite some time. But yeah. So with that, again, we'll see if the Kesper teams, if they step back into StarCraft. If they do, that will be a big moment for the Korean scene. I think another reason why they might be paying attention to StarCraft again is thanks to Chijik, is thanks to Crank. Like, StarCraft 2 has been on the rise in regards to viewership, in regards to the Korean scene in general. Shout out to Crank, by the way, for being the biggest Korean streamer. I would say that also SC Evo is probably helping with that as well. Like Chijik, they've been running events. They've been blending together StarCraft 2 and Brood War. So they've been having some crossover in regards to viewership there. They've also been a little bit successful with that. So yeah, there's been more eyes on StarCraft in Korea as well, which is always a good thing. So yeah, it's are we on some hopium right now? Is the hopium real? I mean,
I will say today is a very positive podcast episode.
It's very positive. Yes, there's a lot of good happening right now. It's crazy. It's we're not used to it. We're not used to the hopium. It's crazy. Ay. Meanwhile, we do have some other tournaments being announced. No surprises here, but Epic LAN, of course, we are 5 weeks away from Epic LAN number 46. Epic LAN is the big LAN event happening in the UK. They do occur on a very regular basis, and they bring together the best of the best players in all of not just the UK, but even the greater scene as well. In recent editions, we have seen players like Geralt. We have seen players like, I almost said Lambert, like Lorimbo, that's it. The other one. Players like Lorimbo, baby. Players like Geralt, players like, I think, Fiant as well. But we have seen some players from the greater European region travel to the UK and travel to Epic LAN and also bring more attention to the event as well. So it's been really cool to see players invest, players traveling, and because of that, now it's not just players from the UK, but also players traveling to the event as well. So again, if you happen to be local or even international and willing to travel, consider being a part of Epic LAN, as it is a big prize pool of 1,500 euros for the prize pool. Is that euros or is that pounds? That might be pounds. But
That is pounds. That is the British, the British currency.
There you go. There you go. So 1,500 pounds when it comes to the prize pool, and of course, always exciting to see the event itself, to look forward to it. Best of luck to all those working behind the scenes at UK SC2 in regards to Epic Land. So best of luck again. It's coming at the end of October, beginning of November. I believe, is this even clashing with SC4ALL? Like, there's so many events. It's happening again, Kura, where all these tournaments are just all jam-packed into November. Just October, end of October, it's October into November.
It's not stopping.
Yeah. They're all just jammed in there.
Okay, so here's a bit of a behind the scenes. So we announced the whole thing with STC, with the monthlies and stuff. I'm like, okay, so September is a bit tricky because we have the RSL, so we have to move everything to Tuesdays. It's not optimal. But in October, I'm sure we can have the weeklies normally on Sundays. And there's like million tournaments already clashing with everything. I'm like, oh, I see.
Exactly. So yeah, all the tournaments are all coming together all at the same time. God damn it, scheduling. Have you heard of it? As speaking of other events happening at the same time, SC4ALL. Now, if you remember, this is a rebranding or a partnering with Cheesadelphia. So instead of Cheesadelphia, there is this SC4ALL event. It is going to be a greater tournament. It is partnered with the SC Historian, and it is not just StarCraft 2, but also Brood War and StarCraft 64 as well. So they have expanded the event, which I think is a really smart thing to do, to bring together communities from not just StarCraft 2, but Brood War as well, to bring them together, the viewer base and the player base as well.
I'll be honest, I'm the most excited about StarCraft 64 getting a tournament. I actually genuinely want to watch that, because I've seen it played like once, and it's like, how?
That it looks like a lot of fun, right? It looks like a nice, like, fun event to host. It's really cool, actually. It's got some like home story cup vibes, right? Like that's what I would want out of home story cup, is for them to have like a show match of StarCraft 64 where they're like drinking on a couch and they're playing the game, right? And then like next to each other with their CRT TVs, like like that's what I would want. So yeah, really cool that they happen to be bringing that together. We spoke about that last time, but what's important is that we have some invites. Geralt, we already knew who was going to go, but yes, Geralt, he is confirmed to be traveling and going to the event. Now, what I will say here, remember, this event is when? November 1st and 2nd. When is Epic Land? October 30th and November 1st, right? So up to November 2nd.
Are you saying?
So he won't be there.
I was gonna say, is there a world where the time zones work so perfectly that he wins Epic Land, then gets on the plane and goes to the other event?
Unfortunately, the math doesn't check out. So he's got to pick one, and we have confirmation. He has picked SC4ALL. So Geralt, he will not be going to Epic Land, which means Epic Land is open. Epic Land is open for a new champion. I think Geralt, he's won like the last two, right? Like the last 2 or 3.
Yeah,
like Geralt has been there. He's been farming Epic Land. So now suddenly Geralt won't be there, which means you in the chat could be at Epic Land and you could win. You can go for it. Eba. There you go. I'll message him.
I mean, Eba did win once before, didn't he?
He did, but he did not go to the last one. I think the last 2 he was absent. He was not there. So Eba. Yeah. So Geralt, he's confirmed going to SC4ALL. Meanwhile, we have Future. Future also confirmed for SC4ALL as well. I mean, he was at the previous Cheesadelphia, so Future and Geralt, they were both at the previous Cheesadelphia. They were both the top 2 players, so it's expected to see them here again. Meanwhile, we have Trigger. That is an exciting one. Trigger, for those that don't know, is not in the Americas. He is in South Korea right now. So Trigger, for him to fly over from Korea to SC4ALL is very exciting. I believe he'll be doing so because I'm pretty sure he'd be flying to SC4ALL and then bam, the next week straight up to Canada for Starfest. So I'm pretty sure he plans on making like a full trip there. I would not be surprised if Geralt's doing the same thing. where you go from one and then you go straight into the other, just to make the most out of your time in the Americas region. So I would not be surprised if they do try to go for that full trip. Meanwhile, we have Artosis also confirmed as a player and probably a caster as well, as he's going to be competing in the Brood War event, so really cool to see. And speaking of Brood War, we have a Striker as well. Striker player that I have no idea who that is. I have no idea, but yeah, there we go. Striker, I'm sure he's an amazing Brood War player. He's also going to be competing in the event at SC4ALL. So some really exciting announcements here, really exciting signups. I'm sure to be announced as well, and I'm sure we're going to be getting some more invites for the SC4ALL tournament. So really cool to see. That leads us into the team at TLMC 5 voting. Now, we were speaking about TLMC before. This is not what I was talking about. This is the team contest. This is for 2v2 maps, 3v3 maps, 4v4 maps. This is not for the 1v1 ladder. This is for the team game ladder instead. But voting is now open. If you missed it, over the past couple of days, over the past week, Wardy has been hosting tournaments featuring these maps. So check out the VODs. Check out the VODs. Wardy has been hosting events on the new 2v2, 3v3, and 4v4 maps. So I do recommend checking out those VODs to get a better idea of what you're voting for, right? So you can see the maps yourselves, you can see them played out, and go in with a little bit more information, go in better informed for what maps you actually want to see in the map pool. This most likely is going to benefit you listening to this a little bit better, just because, of course, team games are a little bit more accessible. So I'm sure a lot of people watching right now don't actually play 1v1 and they play 2v2 or 3v3 instead. So hey, you know, this will impact you if you're out there playing team games. Even if you're not, this is obviously a positive thing to get a fresh team game map pool. So get your votes in. We have Rust Buckets, we have Purple Rain, New Bed of Chaos, Toa Industries, Gem Garden as well for 2v2. We've already gone over these maps. I think we went through them last week or the week before that. For 3v3, we have Ball Peak, we have Incognito, we have Radiator, and we have Tacit Sanctity and Sleeping Giants. And for 4v4, we have Green Spill, we have Heavenward, there's no S there, Netsphere Terminal, Iron Dragon, and Mossfire. So all these maps, I believe, were featured during those tournaments that Wardy hosted. So again, you can check them out, and you can come in better informed with what you want to vote for and what maps you want to see in the map pool. In general, I don't have any strong opinions just because I don't really play much team games. I do cast some 2v2 tournaments every now and then. That is true, but I think that's as far as we really go in regards to covering team game events. So yeah, I'm a little bit less opinionated when it comes to what's good and what isn't. In general, I think, you know, there are some things that we see quite often, like shared main bases, shared natural bases. There's some quirky features here and there, and definitely something worth looking into. So do go in, do check out the maps, and make sure you vote. You know, every vote counts. Every vote does count. Best of luck. The Trigger World Tour. Exactly. Este Kalasi. So yeah, really excited to see the TLMC number 5, the team TLMC progressing. So again, make sure you do vote. Link will be in the chats. I got you. Bam, beautiful. So voting ends when? Voting ends in 4 days. Sorry, in 5 days. In around 5 days time, just under 5 days time, voting will be concluding. So make sure you vote while you can. That leads us into RSL After Dark. This is like a podcast, talk show, wrap-up show that the boys over at RSL do have on a semi-regular basis. What I will say is that they didn't really talk about much. You know, for the first time, Kira, this is the first RSL After Dark that I actually decided to listen to. I had some time today. I was like, you know what? We often skip this. I'm gonna listen to it so we can talk about it. They talked about nothing. They talked about a whole bunch of nothing for 50 minutes, I'll be honest.
They tried to talk about Sturgeon.
No, they did not try. They did not try. They were like, oh, it's Sturgeon, do you want to introduce yourself? And then they just went on these big tangents about like fighting games and how they got into StarCraft and like back in the day and like learning StarCraft again after being rusty for so long and like how good they are at video games. And I think Taste has dropped by to give them some food and then walked away and like it was it was like a fun casual conversation. They didn't really talk about RSL at all. Actually, they did not talk about the tournaments, which is what I was looking forward to. I was hoping they would have some comments about the events, about RSL, about feedback that they've been getting, about the Patreon, about anything. Nah, that was that was no. I mean, if you're out there, if you enjoy like listening to conversations and you know having something in the background, I do recommend it. But if you maybe were hoping they would talk about the tournaments or talk about you know something regarding RSL, that does not happen at all. So aye. I didn't know this, Kuro, but at the very end, they're like, okay, now we're going to talk about the patch. That'll be for patrons only. Like, I didn't realize I didn't realize that RSL After Dark is the public version, but they have like a like a After Dark, which is for the patrons.
That's what happens every time. But usually the patron section, I think, is like patron questions or something. Like it's less like big topics. But this time they left the whole discussion about the patch for the patron section, which I was also surprised about.
Yeah, for the patrons instead. So I'm like, okay, I guess I just wasted. Thankfully, I didn't waste 50 minutes because I had it at like 3 times speed, so that was fine. But
I mean, I would say it was enjoyable to listen to as like a background thing for work. But I agree that they do go on tangents a lot. It's like more like a loose conversation than like actual show.
Yeah. I don't think I learned anything. This is what I'm getting at. It's like, yeah, okay, cool. I mean, we learned a little bit about Sturgeon, I guess. So if you want to know who Sturgeon is, this is the place to be. This is the video to watch. As we do have the final bit of news here for the week, it is going to be we got a nice little revelation regarding someone that competed at the last Philadelphia. I did not know this. This person, of course, was a part of the big photo, was a part of the event, but apparently we do have the mother of one of the fans that has been actually playing StarCraft recently, has been actively competing and taking a bigger role into something that her son has been like a part of, right? Which is very wholesome to see, despite, you know, the age of said person at 72 years old, willing to, you know, step into StarCraft, willing to play a game, willing to spend time and be a part of again, like her son or part of their family, in a greater way, and spend time together in such a way through gaming, right? Through video games, through StarCraft. It's really cool to hear. Really nice. Really wholesome. Really wholesome. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to it, but apparently I think she streams a little bit as well.
Yeah, as a note for those who want the summary, you can of course check the thread itself in the description of the video. But apparently she started playing like around 2-3 years ago as a way to connect with her son after the father passed. And she's just been playing daily. Like apparently she just enjoys playing now, and she's being coached by Foxer. And she actually competes in tournaments. She like follows all the like, you know, the commentators. Like she has like her son says that like she always has like, you know, like Wardy or someone like on her TV whenever he comes over. And they are going to compete again in SC4ALL, I believe. Yeah, they are going to SC4ALL, and leading up to that, both of them will be streaming. So for those who don't know, the son is Vast. I don't know if anyone recognizes Vast, but he was also competing in a few tournaments recently. So yeah, there you go.
Pretty sure I casted him. I think I might have casted him during DreamHack, actually.
He was at
but
DreamHack.
Maybe during She's Up as well.
He was at DreamHack.
Yeah. So we actually casted a couple of his games. But as we were alluding to, it is very wholesome that, you know, when Vast's father passed away, like his mother decided to, again, as I mentioned, let's just kind of take a step into or step towards like spending more time with her son, and did so by playing StarCraft, by competing in StarCraft. So it's really cool. It's a really nice story. Really cool to hear. Again, very wholesome, and really cool to see that that's kind of grown into a greater appreciation and greater like love for the game, of not just playing just to spend time with her son, but also enjoying to compete and improve, and just enjoying the game in general is really cool, really nice to see, very nice to see. So best of luck to the two of them. Best of luck to the two of them when it comes to competing in SC4ALL, and of course more events moving forward as well. as that is going to be wrapping up our topics for the week. Now we still have to go through all the tournament results. Again, there are still plenty of tournaments like the Patch Clash, StarCraft Evolution, alongside the regular weekly tournaments, alongside RSL. Right? We just spoke briefly about the fact that they didn't talk about RSL. We will be talking about RSL here at the end of the broadcast as we go through all the tournaments of the week. For now, we're going to be going on a short break. And when we come back, we will be going through the results of this week's tournaments. See you soon. And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the second half of the PondCast here, the PondCast episode 56. 64. We just wrapped up with the initial topic list here, going through the StarCraft 2 PTR patch notes, going through the new news regarding the Chinese client, talking about the new tournament pickups and what all that does entail as well in regards to the greater StarCraft 2 scene. Really exciting things to come, and what that can allude to as well. So yeah, really cool to hear, really cool to see. But now it's time for tournament results. Here we go. A lot of tournaments, of course, do take place on a weekly basis. We cast most of them, but there's still some that we are not quite able to cover. First, we have StarCraft Evolution. Now for SC Evo, I don't think we've actually discussed the proposed PTR balance changes. We can do that next time. We can talk about that next time. But likewise, they also have their own PTR changes that they are testing, that they're pushing through, and they have been running, and they do plan on running more tournaments on the PTR before they push the patch live. So really interesting to see that they're going through this process. I say it's interesting just because the devs working on SC Evolution, they have less constraints when it comes to how often they want to patch. So it's kind of weird, but it's possible that they just don't feel confident pushing through all these changes straight away, just because, especially recently, they've been reverting a bunch of changes, right? They've been doing a lot of reversions, a lot of walking back, and then pushing forward again. So it looks like they want to iterate first before committing to an actual patch this time. So it looks like they're adjusting their process a little bit, because this is the first we've seen of a PTR event like this. So yeah, interesting decision there from those over at StarCraft Evolution. Maybe taking feedback as to the amount of changes that they've been doing at once, or so just on a regular basis, and how it's difficult to kind of take all of that in as well. So interesting to see that they've decided to go for the PTR route as well, and we'll be going over those changes next time. For now, we have the event itself, and we actually have a new regular player here. If you remember, Solar, he was invited to compete in the Chijik tournaments, in the Chijik Brood War versus SC2 event, and Solar did really well. He did surprisingly well in that tournament, and it looks like he's hooked. Looks like that may have hooked him in, and now he's playing in the PTR edition of this event. He takes down Prome 2-0, takes down Tasia 2-1, takes down Beyond 2-1, and takes down Tasia 2-1 as well. Very impressive. Beyond and Tasia, I would say, are the two best Terran players in StarCraft Evolution currently. So for Soul to beat both of them is very impressive. Of course, the one player that is the best of the best that isn't here is Classic. Classic, he is the reigning StarCraft Evolution champion from the championship. He was not a part of this event, so we don't really get to see Solar against him, but seeing Solar take down Tasia and Beyond, it bodes well, and it shows the quality of, or the caliber of play that Solar's playing at. So very impressive play there. Congratulations. Once again, this is also not in the base StarCraft Evolution version. This is in the PTR. And again, we'll be going over those PTR changes next week, as we already spent quite a lot of time going through the main SC2 PTR changes. We'll be touching and delving into this PTR for StarCraft Evolution next time. But with that, congratulations to Solar. That leads us into the 5.4K patch clash number 5. Now, patches, he has his own proposed balance changes and his own mod that he has been pushing, he has been iterating on, and he has been running tournaments on as well. So really cool to see him doing his own thing, doing his own changes, of course, and potentially changes that could be iterated on and pushed into the live version of the game as well. That might be picked up by those working at Blizzard. So again, there's reason to do so. Reason to go through and see what works and what does not. Here we have Inexorable. Once again, Inexorable, he takes down Xingming. Xingming, I believe, off racing, in my mind, is a Chinese Protoss player, not Terran. So hold on a minute.
I mean, this is the MMR restricted one, so they may be off racing.
Yeah, I just double checked. He is Protoss, so he is off racing. So he is off racing here as Terran. And Inexorable does claim the entire tournament, takes down Xingming, Bomyoja, Mixu, and Xingming at the very end as well. Mixu also off racing. So Mixu and Xingming did off race just so they could actually compete in the event. And Inexorable does claim it once again. Congratulations to Inexorable. GG, well played. GG well played does claim the win. That leads into our amateur events. So we have the Amateur League Weekly number 138. Oh boy, that's a lot of Amateur League weeklies. Up first, we have the Initiate version. Just as a quick heads up, this is a regular weekly tournament split between different leagues, different MMR ranges, and it is a weekly tournament for the more amateur scene. That's why it's called the Amateur League Weekly. The initiative version is for those between the leagues of Bronze and Platinum. And in this tournament, we had Ragnar. Okay, Ragnar, of course, he's a regular in this tournament and a regular in our chat as well. Ragnar takes down Swooton 2-0, takes down Jackals 2-0, takes down Coral Viper 2-0, and Coral Viper 3-0 as well. Very impressive run here from Ragnar. Ragnar, he's a regular in these tournaments. He has won these in the past, and he will win one here as well. I know he has been improving quite a lot as of late. He is in the upper echelons of Platinum and looking to push into Diamond. I hope that that's kind of the trajectory that Ragnar is on here. Well played. GG, well played. That leads us into the Veteran Edition. This is for those between the leagues of Diamond 3 and Diamond 2. Here we do have Taldarim. Taldarim takes down Glacius, takes down Balimko, takes down Bobson, and takes down Bobson in the rematch finals as well. So impressive play there by Taldarim. He is another regular that we have seen in these tournaments in the past. He does claim the entire tournament here, 3-0 in the finals. GG. GG, an impressive run here. Did drop some maps to Glacius and to Bobson, but in the finals was a cleaner 3-0 win. That leads us into the Prestige Tournament. This is for those between the leagues of Diamond 1 and Masters 2. Here we have a lot of our regulars as well. Set, the Ukrainian Zerg player, takes down Demachio 2-0, takes down Blue Knight 2-0, takes down, falls to Hidich. Hidich is a player that I've not seen before, so interesting. I'm unfamiliar with him as a player. But Set, he gets knocked down, takes down Blade of Fire 1-0, who's an American Protoss, if I recall correctly, and Set does take down Hidich in the rematch 3-1. A very impressive play there by Set. Does claim the win. Again, Set, he's played in our tournaments in the past as well. I think, he has played in our tournaments in the past, and cool to see him thriving here as well in the Amateur League Weekly. So congratulations. That leads us into the next edition. That leads us into the Prestige Edition for those between the leagues of Diamond 1 and Masters 2. We just went through that. That leads us into the Elite Edition. That's it. The Elite Edition, which is for those between the leagues of Masters 1 and GM. And here we had some more signups this time. We had Deka. I believe the French Zerg player. Either Zerg or Protoss. He might be Protoss. But that guy does take down Toaster 2-1. Sorry, yeah, Protoss. He's right there. What am I talking about? He's Protoss. Takes down Toaster 2-1 and does win in the rematch as well, 3-0. Cool to see that we had some extra signups this time. Again, typically the Elite Edition of this tournament is not really popular. The reasoning for this is that this is for pro players, right? It's for M1 to GM. But all the pro players, they play for money. And these weeklies do not provide prize money. They only provide points. The points do lead into an event at the end of the season, which does have prize money. But you have to put a lot of work in playing in the weeklies to qualify for that end of season event. And a lot of pro players don't bother with that. So that's why we see less signups here for the Elite Edition. But really cool to see Deka popping off. GG, well played, congratulations. With that leads us into our next tournament. That leads us into the Little Mac Master League season number 10. It's been a while here. Really cool to see Little Mac once again hosting tournaments. Last I heard, I think Little Mac, he was either neck deep in Stormgate or neck deep in Stormgate. Like, I think he was all in on Stormgate for a while there. So really cool to see Little Mac coming back to StarCraft and hosting a tournament. This is a GSL style tournament for those that are below the MMR of 5.4k average MMR and below. So this is for the up-and-coming semi-pros, and looking at the player list here, who do we see? A lot of recognizable names here. Azura, we have the Italian Protoss player Azura. He's going to be coming in as one of the heavy favorites. We have Balensbaum, we have Benny, we have Fireclaw, Magnath, Mathrix, Mosten, Nihed, Roscoe, Zions. Oh, Zions is back. He's been retired for quite a number of years here. He's a Peruvian Protoss player. So Zions is here. Angry, Gypsy Danger, Inexorable, Kamikaze, Mado, Patches, Anticore, Kaiboy, Radka, and Ryojin. Okay, so I was going to go into predictions first, but looks like Group Stage 1... Oh my, they've blazed through this tournament. My apologies. Did we miss out on this earlier?
This tournament actually has been going on for a while, but I was waiting for the group stage to be over to actually properly cover it. Because this is one of those tournaments that just goes on for months.
Yeah, it looks like it's been going on for a while, actually. Yeah, not entirely certain as to when this got updated, but did begin back in July of this year. But coming into this, I would have said the favorite players are going to be players like Azura, players like Inexorable, players like Ryojin. Those are the three in my mind. And Nihed as well, true. Those are the top four in my mind. And we'll see if they made it through here. From Group A, we had, Draconics. Oh, right, there were more players, just not notable. So Draconics and Azura, they make it a Group A. Did Draconics beat Azura? No. Draconics, calm down, Papika, let's go. Takes down Azura 2-1. Sorry, 2-0 even, so very impressive. But Draconics and Azura, they do make it through Group A. Group B, we had Kamikaze and Ryojin, to be expected. Group C, we had Sig. Hey, Sig is there as well. Sig over Nihed. We have some of the lesser known players taking down the notables. Very impressive. We have Angry and Inexorable making it a Group D. Did Angry beat Inexorable? That's impressive. Yeah, he takes down Inexorable 2-1. Very impressive play. We have Magnath and Maro. Impressive. I was favoring Matrix over Maro. We have Anticore and Roscoe. We have Ino and Winter. We have Zions and Gypsy Danger. For the most part, I would say that at least in the group stage, the only upsets were Angry beating Inexorable, Sig beating Nihed, and Draconics beating Azura. Very, very impressive wins there for the players. But for the most part, the favorite players did make it through the group stage. Going into into Group Stage 2, we had Kamikaze and Ryojin making it out of Group A, to be expected. They were favored coming into that. We had Group B. Ooh, this is an upset. We had the Latino American group here. We had Zion's, Inexorable, Draconics, and Angry. Angry comes out on top. I'll be honest, I don't rate Angry like as highly as these other players here. So really impressive play here by Angry. Oh my god, takes down Draconics 2-0, takes down Inexorable 2-0 as well. Very impressive play there by Angry. And Draconics, he gets the win over Inexorable 2-1. I would call that an upset. For sure. Big upset here. Crazy win for Draconics. Very well done. That leads us into Group C. We had Nihed and Azura making it out. They were the favorite players there, making it out over Magnath and Gypsy Danger. And then we had Roscoe and Anticore making it out over Sig and Mado. I would have leaned towards Sig there, to be fair. Sig did take down Mado 2-0, but did fall to Anticore 2-1. Barely didn't make it through. Barely didn't make it through. And with that, we have our top 8. We have our top 8 players. We have Kamikaze versus Anticore, Nihed versus Draconics, Angry versus Azura, and Roscoe versus Ryojin. I would say the only big surprises here is, again, Inexorable is not a part of the top 8. Sig, not a part of the top 8 either. So crazy results there. The fact that some players did not make it through. Now, of the remaining players, who do we favor? I think I would say Nihed, right? Nihed. I think I would favor him on his half. I favor him over the Draconics, over Kamikaze, and over Anticore. I think he's the favorite player to make it to the finals from the top side. From the bottom side, Angry's been popping off. I want to bet against Angry, but I keep betting against him, and he keeps making it out in first place out of the group. So, like, I don't know if I can say it with confidence. I would say that Azura's favored. I would say that Azura is favored against Angry, against Roscoe, and against Ryojin. But that might be the series to take it, like Angry and Azura. Like, whoever wins there might go all the way. It's hard to say here. But regardless, best of luck to all the players. Best of luck as they are in the top 8. And yeah, once we get some results, once we get the finale of this event, we'll keep you notified. We'll be there to report. That leads us into PassionCraft Emerging Stars number 32. I did hear that this event was going to be going on hiatus, if I recall correctly, due to low signups. In general, I feel like signups have been decent for this event, but specifically for number 32, yeah, signups were very, very low here. So really unfortunate, considering like this is a really nice tournament. This is a regular weekly tournament for those that are below the MMR ranges of 5.5k, right? Like, this is for the up-and-coming semi-pro players. The up-and-coming players here, this is for them. And it looks like over time they've been getting a little bit less interest in this tournament, which is a bit of a shame. So we had Inexorable, we had Hushy, we had Cos Phoenix, and F2 Click as well. F2 Click does win the entire tournament, but yeah, it is a shame that there was so little interest in this week's event, and so little so that the organizer of the event has decided to put this on an indefinite hiatus. So a bit of a shame here. It was a really nice initiative. Big shout out to Mr. L. Mr. L was the organizer of this event. But again, I believe this will be the last PassionCraft Emerging Stars tournament, at least for the near future. If it comes back, we'll bring it up. So congratulations to F2 Click for winning the potentially final Emerging Stars event. That leads us into the World TV Liquid Team Liquid Contest 14 3v3 edition. We spoke about this earlier, about how there were these team game tournaments that were taking place to feature these new maps. And here we have the 3v3 edition. Likewise, we also have the 4v4 edition, which I think we already spoke about, I would imagine. No, we haven't. So I guess we'll be going over that as well. Yes, so we have the 4v4 tournament and the 2v2 event as well.
Yes, last week it was in the PondCast was in the middle of the 3v3 event. We were still waiting for the results of the finals.
Yeah, and we have the results. We have the results here. We have Showtime, Euthermal, and Serral. We have the Dream Team, the trio themselves, one of each race. The best of the best in all of Europa, of course. Smurge Clem. She was not a part of this. They do face off. They do claim the win over Lambo, Spirit, and Hearthstone. Really cool to see that we actually had one of each race in each team for the finals specifically. So really cool that we had that nice balance between them. The best part of these events, of course, is the banter that they have while they're playing, while they're in game. So congratulations to Showtime, Euthermal, and Serral, my condolences to Lambo, Spirit, and Hearthstone. I hope that's some team names. That's all I hope. I hope that's some nice team names, and I hope they use them well. That leads us into the 4v4 tournaments. Here in the 4v4 event, we did have a couple of teams as well. Once again, signups were very low for these events just because you require so many players to actually make a team. So really unfortunate that we had low signups for both the 3v3, 2v2, and 4v4 as well. I think that's also why I already hosted a second 2v2 tournament, just because of the low signups. But yeah, because that was just a show match. Smooch. I mean, he did what he could.
I mean,
so for the 4v4 event,
to be fair, from what I know, the 2v2 Invitational was happening regardless.
Yeah. I mean, I thankfully was able to get some more games out of that. But for the 4v4, we did have teams of Byun, Ryung, Shin, and Nightmare. Interesting team. A combination of players there. We had Geralt, Max, Spirit, and Showtime. We had Wayne. We had Master Vasya. We had Zardians and Night Phoenix, and we had Lambo, Hearthstone, Laser, and a Kellizer. Okay. I mean, I don't know how to judge 4v4 at all, so I'm sure they were entertaining games. In the end, the Korean team, the pure Korean team, they made it through 2-0 over Geralt, Max, Spirit, and Showtime, and they were to win the grand finals here over Wayne, Master Vasya, Zardians, and Night Phoenix as well. So congratulations to Byun, Ryung, Shin, and Nightmare, especially because historically the Koreans don't really play in team games too often. Like, we've been hosting, like Euthermal, he hosted his 2v2 tournaments on a regular basis, and we barely had any Korean sign up. We had a duo of Ryung and Gumiho, like that one time. We had Byun and Percival, like once as well. Like again, like the Koreans, they barely really had much interest in it. But here they were to thrive in the 4v4. Cool to see. I'm sure Shin and Ryung, I'm sure they made some content out of that. As that leads us into the second 2v2 event, where they did have more of like a round robin sort of event here, which I think is the best thing to do if you want to get the most games that you can with the least amount of players. So they had two teams. They had Team Hearthstone, they had Team Laser. So Hearthstone, his team consisted of Hearthstone, Lambo, Max, Nickrat, and Wayne. Then we had Team B of Laser, Goblin, Showtime, Spirit, and Uwu Thermal. Also, I apologize. I said the Hearthstone team is a Laser team. It was Hearthstone and Euthermal. He was the team captain for Team B as well. And I believe they would field duos. Here to kind of face off and to go up against each other and to play these best ofs. So we had interesting pairings. We had the homies. We had Euthermal and Goblin. They took down Nickrat and Wayne 2-1. Very impressive. And then is this all kill format? Wait, what? They stuck around. They took down Max and Nickrat 2-1 as well. Then we had Lambo and Max taking down Goblin and Euthermal. So Euthermal, he was swapped out with Spirit instead. So Spirit stepped in. They also lost against Lambo and Max. And Lambo and Max, they just stuck around. Yeah, I guess all kill format. Hold on. Let's read this up. Let's look at we should have started with the format.
It's kind of an all kill, yeah.
The match starts with each team selecting a 2v2 team from their squad of 5 players, and these 2 teams then play a best of 3. Losing team of the best of 3 will lose 1 player from the 2v2 that just played. This player will be eliminated from the event. Then they will have to send out another player to join the player that just played but was not eliminated against the same 2v2 combination of the opposing team. Player that has lost 2 series will be automatically eliminated. Okay, so it's kind of all kill, where when you lose a series, you have to replace a player. So when Nickrat and Wayne lost, they replaced Wayne with Max Pax, and then when they lost again, they replaced Nickrat with Lambo. And then when Goblin Euthermal lost, they replaced Euthermal with Spirit. Then when they lost again, they replaced Goblin with Showtime. Then when they lost again, they replaced Spirit with a Laser. Is there a player that never played? Yep, Harstem. Harstem never played. God damn it. Harstem, he did not play at all in this event, despite being the captain. He just made everyone else work for it instead. Makes sense. That's Harstem. SMH. So congratulations to Harstem's team, as Harstem did win the event without playing a single game. Let's go. And with that, they were able to showcase all the maps, of course. They were able to showcase as many maps as they could. And again, I do recommend checking out this event to be able to get a bit more information about those maps, about what you want as a part of the event. The drama. True. Oh, the drama. As that leads us into the StarCraft 2 Collegiate World Championship. Okay, we already went through the teams, or through the initial participants, I believe. We did that last time, but now we have the group stage taking place. I believe we've already had some progression in the group stage as well. Just checking. Oh, sure. Okay. So the group stage did conclude. Who made it through? Okay, from Group A, we had Fiant and Inexorable advancing on in first and second place. Group B, we had Sebestis and Azura. Group C, UD Soldier and XY Fans. Group D, we had Qingming and Nisho. Group E, we had Hydra and Greenert. Group F, we had Sig and Acheron. Group G, we had Hackers Top and Lorimbo. Group H, we had Gunner and Magnath. I would say that there weren't any really big upsets here. I think all the favorite players made it through. You could argue that Anticore, maybe that was an upset. Anticore did not make it through. Let's have a look here. Anticore, there was some forfeits. He got some forfeit wins. He lost against UD Soldier and he lost against XY Fans. Okay. So Anticore, he barely didn't make it through, as he did lose those series 2-1. He fought hard for it, but barely didn't make it through. And then we have our favorite players making it through into the top round of 16. So we have our seeded round of 16 playoffs here. We have Fiant versus Magnath, Hackers Top versus Azura, UD Soldier versus Acheron, Hydra versus Nisho, Sebestis versus Lorimbo, Gunner versus Inexorable, Qingming versus Greenert, and Sig versus XY Fans. Okay, so looking at this bracket here, who's favorite to take it all? So I think from the top half of the bracket, Fiant, right? I would lean towards Fiant over... Do I favor Fiant over UD Soldier and Hydra? I think I know the Fiant's been smudging a lot. He's been smudging a lot. He's been playing less StarCraft. Has he smudged enough? Or is he still in lost in ZVP? I just realized... Oh no. This will not help the smudging. I just realized that Fiant, he's literally on the half of the bracket where it's just full of Protoss and Hackers Top, which is who's an animal. He's a clown. He just does nothing but cheese. So Fiant, he's literally surrounded by Protoss, all the Terran players and the other Zerg players on the other half of the bracket. So this bracket was built to attack Fiant's mental state, 100%. Like he has strong thoughts about ZVP and has been very upset about it, and this tournament will not help. This will not help at all. So best of luck to Fiant's mental. We'll see if he can survive the non-stop Protoss on his way to the finals. Second half is a little bit more diverse. Do I favor Inexorable? I favor Inexorable over Gunner. Sebestis, of course, he's a big name there. Lorimbo, he can be a wild card. Sig, of course, has been improving a lot. I think I favor Sebestis. I think Sebestis for the lower half, Fiant in the upper half, but it's hard to call here. Best of luck. Best of luck to all the players. Best of luck to all those involved. There's going to be a show match as well, champion versus question mark. That'll be after the event concludes. So best of luck. Best of luck. As the Collegiate World Championship will be concluding by the time next week does roll around. That leads us into our regional events and our show matches. Up first, we do have the Sunny Lake Cup number 3. This was, an insane group stage. An insane round-robin group of purely best of twos. Look at how many games were played. God. It's a fun fact. MinoVK, he's been reaching out. He's like, Bappy, do you want to cast? I'm like, I have no time. But I also look at the tournaments that he's running and look at how many games there are. That's a crazy event, Bappy. That's so many matches. Oh, no. I could not, Pappy. I could. That's a one-day event as well, by the way. Just massive round robin group. So in the end, who made it through? We had Wayne. Wayne comes out in first place. We had GG Machine in second, Nickrat in third over Shameless, Young Yakov, Skilless, Hearts, and UD Soldier. That's crazy. Nikita's heavily favored here. He dropped a map to UD Soldier. He dropped a map to Nickrat. He dropped a map to Shameless. He lost against GG Machine. That's a huge upset. And he dropped a map to Art. Yes, Skilless a little bit shaky. A little bit shaky here, as he should be one of the heavy favorites. Likewise, Young Yakov also surprisingly did not make it far in this tournament. He went down to G Machine, he dropped the map to Art, he went down to Wayne, he went down to Shameless, he tied against Nickeract. So yeah, some really interesting results here. Shout out to Wayne and GG Machine. Wayne, he's back on that horse. GG Machine has been slowly improving over time, and for him to come out in second place here is very impressive, considering the caliber of players in this tournament. So really impressive run there by GG Machine. As that leads us into our Matas game. Also, of course, this event was organized by MinoVK, was casted by MinoVK as well. Was not casted in English. We have been approached to cover this event as well, but I have not had the time to cover it, unfortunately. So we did cover one of the Sunny Lake Cups, Sunny Lake Cup number 1, but we missed out on 2 and 3. We might go back into it for number 4. We'll see. These formats are brutal, though. Like, there's so many games. That leads us to Amantes. Amantes is StarCraft number 41. This is a Brazilian-only tournament, and here we had Master. Once again, no Eric. No Eric to face off against Master. Eric, he has been on a hiatus, and in Eric's absence, Master has been cleaning house, and no one can stop him. He takes down Elevolts. He takes down Inexorable 3-0, Kamikaze 4-0 as well. Who else can stop him? Shakti. Right, typically Shakti, Yan, Eric, they can stand in his way, but here they're not there. They're not able to stand in his way. They're not able to face off against him. So Master, he goes through this untouched. Perfect score. Yeah, without dropping a single map. Impressive. Impressive play there by Master. Again, he's the best Protoss player in all of Brazil, and only a few can really pose a threat against him. So GG, well played. That leads us into the Elpis Team League 2025 full code A. Oh boy, we already went through the qualifiers, I believe. The preseason leading into this, but here we have the beginning of the main event. The group stage has been going underway for both Code S and Code A. Quickly going over Code A here, we have the first round. Okay, the first round has concluded. We have PTB taking down their opposing team 6-0. We had Rookie Warpgate taking down FLC 4-3. Hold on, FLC is 4-leaf Clover. Oh, let's go. We had Hist and Toss taking down Rookie Warpgate to the second team 4-3 as well. So only the first round has concluded. Remember, this is Code A. This is where we have some of the lesser known teams and some of the weaker rosters as well. Coming into this event, who do we favor? Quickly double checking here. Starlight Twinkle Team 2 has Xingming. I would say he's the best player in this tournament. Maybe, actually, Pioneer is pretty good as well. Like, I rate Pioneer quite highly. He's on Rookie Warpgate. We have Xingming for Starlight Twinkle. We have YRYF for 4-leaf Clover. Like, we have a couple of notables, but what's important is that they're spread out. And at the end of the day, this is a team league, right? Like, it's not about the notables, it's about the rest of the team as well. So it's really hard to call who's favorite here. I lean maybe towards Starlight Twinkle, but for the most part, like, this is yeah, it's going to be a harder one to call, and best of luck. Best of luck to all the teams and how they all compare and compete against each other in the coming weeks, in the coming season. That leads us into Code S. Code S is where we have the bigger names and the bigger teams that are facing off. For Code S, who do we have? We have Astartes featuring Latte. We have Elpis Esports Team, which has Lemon, which has Miggy, Oriana, Restart, SCV, hefty roster for Elpis. We have Team Hist with Kingslayer number TATP. We have Kaoda, which has Ghost, Turn, and Winter. We have Little Fairy featuring Shameless, of course, Shameless and Little Fairy. They used to have Percival. I believe Percival did leave the team, so Percival no longer going to be a factor there. They do have Ultramarine as well. They have PCEC, which has Mixu. True, remember they have some quote-unquote mercenaries, like Mixu's on PCEC, Shameless is on Little Fairy, Ultramarine's on Little Fairy as well. Starlight Twinkle, Triple H, Jolo Loves, Nanyi, Rewhite, and Young Zest. And we have Toho Project with Daydreamer. Now, coming into this very quickly, I would say the strongest teams are Starlight Twinkle and Elvis. Starlight Twinkle with Triple H, Jolowa, Rewhite, and Young Zest. They have a pure Protoss team, but those are some strong Protoss players, 100%. So they have a hefty roster. Elvis, who they have, Lemon, who I want to say that Lemon is the best player in the league. I want to favor Lemon over, I want to favor Lemon over Mixu. I don't know if I can favor Lemon over Shameless. So I would say he's like top two. Like top two, Shameless and Lemon, right? They are the highest rated players. Top three would be Shameless, Lemon, and Mixu. So Elbus, they have Lemon as a star player, but they also have Oriana, Restart, SCV, Miggy. They have a nice core around Lemon. And then you have Little Fairy, who has Shameless, arguably the best player in the league, with Ultramarine. But I would say that the rest of their roster is a little bit weaker. They have some good star players, but the rest of the roster is a little bit weaker. It's a little bit worse for PCEC, where they have Mixu. True, they have Mixu. Like when it comes to the rest of the roster, some more unnotables, some lesser known players, not as strong of a roster here. So coming into this tournament, I have to favor Starlight Twinkle and Elpis. I believe they're going to go far in this. Little Fairy is going to be maybe my third pick as well. The other team is just because they have Ultramarine and Ear, I guess. I don't know. I'm on the fence on Little Fairy. I might put Hist above them, like Kingslayer, Number, and TATP. That's like a solid 3-player team there, alongside the others, of course. But like Hist has potential as well. So we'll see. We'll see how they perform. Coming into the season itself, we have round one concluding. We have Elpis. They take the win over Kauda. Again, we expect to see this. Like Elpis, I would say our favorite teams. Migi takes on Ghost. We have a forfeit in the second round and a tied 1-1 scoreline. Up next, we had Starlight Twinkle versus Astartes. Again, Starlight Twinkle, they're one of the heavy favorites. We had Jolowa 1-1 against Latte. We had Young Zest 2-0s and Rewhite 1-1s. Then we had PCEC. Here we had some players I'm a little bit less familiar with here, but PCEC, they do get the win at 5-1 over Total Project. And then we had Little Fairy over Hist. Oh, okay. We had Ear tied 1-1 against Kingslayer. We had Ghost Runner 2-0 Number, and we had Shameless 1-1 TATP. That is a clutch score. That came down to the first series. That came down to Ghost Runner and Number. So really, really close scoreline there. Again, I mentioned before, I was kind of favoring Hist over Little Fairy, but Little Fairy, they get the win. GG. GG, well played. We'll see how far Little Fairy can go, as that was merely only round one, and we have 7 rounds in total. So best of luck to all the teams, as again, this is a big team league happening amongst the Chinese teams over in their region, with some of the teams, of course, incorporating some of the more international players like Mixu, like Shameless, like Ultramarine, and Lemon as well. As that leads us into the Sunrise Cup number 217. This is a weekly tournament here for the Chinese region, and here we had Miggy. Hey, we just spoke about him. He does take down Jolly Loves 2-0. Very impressive. Does make it all the way to the finals. Ooh, Young Zest forfeited. I would have favored Young Zest to make it all the way to the finals, but Young Zest did forfeit in the quarterfinals. And then we had our champion. Is that Nanyu? Hold on. Or is that Suniko? Let's see. That's not. There you go. That's Nanyu. Nanyu does take the win over Miggy 3-1. Nanyu is a very strong player as of late. Nanyu is on PCEC. Oh, that's another actually really strong asset for that team. Talking about the team league, Nanyu has been on fire. I think I would go as far as to say that Nanyu is currently the best Zerg player in China, just because Silky is inactive, right? Silky has been inactive for quite some time, for a couple of months. With Silky stepping away, Nanyu has stepped up. He has stepped up as the best player. So again, he's going to be another asset in the team league. That leads us into the Japanese weekly, the Legacy Weekly Japan at number 472. It's crazy, so many Japanese weeklies, and I know who that is. Tapioca. Tapioca does take down Akira in the first round, takes down Nisei in the second round. Nisei Zo takes down Deadly Kitten, and takes down Noah Shirayuki in the finals as well, who also took down Vaishravanya. So very impressive. Again, Tapioca, in my mind, is solidified as the best player in Japan. Straight up. The best player in Japan, has surpassed Vaisravanya, has surpassed Crimson, has surpassed Psyarch, and Deadly Kitten as well. Tapioca has been on top for quite a number of months at this point. I want to say like maybe 2 months. So really impressive to see the rise of Tapioca. Get that boba. Get that boba. Yeah. As that leads us into the OSC results here for the week. I believe we did have one day of the midseason playoffs number 2, and I believe we had some results coming in here. So, quickly checking our notes. Okay, there we go. So we had Skillus versus Nice. Hold on. So that's in the lower brackets. No, sure.
No, that's in the upper bracket, but in early round.
Yeah. So Skillus takes down Nice 2-1, takes down Nice 2-1. Again, Skillus has been looking a little bit shaky as of late, so I'm a little bit less confident in him. I would have favored Skillus against Nice and Skillus against Cristiano, but I don't think I can say that with full confidence anymore just because of his recent performances. So best of luck to Nikita as he's up against Cristiano in the next round. When it goes up against Solar, likewise we had Cure versus Percival. Cure does take down Percival 2-1. Percival has been looking quite impressive in TVT, I'll be honest. Like, the TVTs from Percival have been looking better and better. You just saw it here. Percival, he took down Spirit 2-1, took a map off of Cure. Percival, he's been improving, straight up. Like, no longer is only his TVP in form, but his other matchups have been getting better and better as well. So it's really impressive to see the growth of Percival over time. Likewise, Cristiano did take down Hydra 2-0. We had Max versus Ryung. Max takes down Ryung 2-0 as well. We had Mana versus Art, where Mana did take down Art 2-0. And we had Moja. I believe that's in the lower bracket. Yeah, Moja takes down Mute 2-1 in the initial round. Mute is now out of the tournament. Likewise, SOS takes down Homono 2-0. Homono also out of the tournament as well. Again, as you can see here, when it comes to the bracket, it's huge. Massive bracket, a lot of players, a lot of matches. It can be a little bit difficult to keep up with. And best of luck to all the players. Best of luck to all the players here moving forward, as there's still plenty of matches to come. Coming into this tournament, there are still some heavy favorites. We have Max, we have Björn, we have Mana, we have Cure, we have Solar, we have Skillus and Cristiano. There's some heavy favorites. Best of luck to everyone involved. We might be covering some of these in the future. Does depend. I know that Steadfast covers some of these tournaments or some of these days, and Wardy as well. So best of luck to all those involved with the OC mid-season playoffs. That leads us into the Open Cups. Let's go. We've made it. We made it to the Open Cups here. Up first, we do have the KSL, the Korean StarCraft League, week number 80. This is, of course, a weekly open tournament, but is catered towards the Korean time zone and the Korean server. And hero, he is the reigning king of KSL. He has won almost 100% of the KSLs that he has signed up for. I think he's only lost like 2. I think only 2 KSLs he ended up losing, but outside of that, he has won every single one. Hero, he 2-0's Rebellion, he 2-0's Trigger, and he 3-1's Classic. There's been a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around Classic because of his run in EWC, and Classic is a very strong player. You could argue the strongest Protoss player out there, but Hero, he does pose a threat to him. Hero, he is also up there. He's top 2, if not, yeah, he's like top 2 alongside Classic when it comes to the best Protoss players in the world, and Hero does bring him down, 3-1. GG, well played, at least this week. I should also emphasize that Hero and Classic, they go back and forth. They often do go back and forth here. This week, Hero does take it. Next time, I'm sure Classic will. They will be trading from there. But well played here to Hero as it does claim the KSL. That leads us into the Platinum StarCraft League September edition. This, of course, is a more European-friendly time zone. We did have some Korean representation, but here we had Cristiano. Cristiano, he takes down Percival 2-1, takes down Nick 2-1, but Shameless was popping off. Shameless 2-0 over Geralt. I would have said that was an upset, and 3-0 over Cristiano. Shameless looking like a beast. Didn't drop a single map. Did not drop a single map in this tournament. Takes down everyone 2-0, 3-0, and is this month's champion. Very well done. Very well done. Very well played. Again, this is a monthly tournament leading into an end-of-year finals, just as a heads up, and Shameless does claim the win. GG, well played. Very impressive play there by Shameless. That leads us into the Wardy TV Mondays number 52. This is a weekly open tournament on Mondays. This was after the KSL and after the Platinum StarCraft tournament. Here we had Max. Max, he does go on a tear, and there were some missing players this week. I did take note of this. Where was Hero? Where was Clem? This week, no hero. This week, no Clem. This week, there was less players to threaten Max Packs. No one to threaten Max Packs. The biggest threat to Max Packs was Harstem. Harstem took a map. Shout out to the captain himself. Takes a map off of Max Packs, but he 2-0s Mana, he 2-0s Rogue, and he 3-0s Shameless. The real story of this tournament was Shameless. I would say that Shameless was the most impressive player here, because Max Packs, the players that he beat, we expected him to. What did Shameless accomplish? He took down Lambo. Shameless, he 2-1 Lambo, he 2-1 Nickracht, and he 2-0'd Bjorn. Shameless, he just won. I mean, maybe it was a sign of things to come. He had just won the Platinum September tournament, and here he comes in second place, beating Bjorn, Nickracht, and Lambo. Really, really impressive performance here by Shameless. Very well done. GG. GG, well played. Again, I'll say that his performance was more impressive than Max Packs, just because Max Packs, he was favored against the players that he had already beaten. Shameless, less so. The other big win here was Rogue. Rogue, he did defeat Classic 2-1. I'm sure Max Packs was very happy to see that. I would say that Classic is a bigger threat to Max Packs than Rogue is, so I'm sure Max Packs is very happy to see that Rogue was facing off against him in the semis instead, and Max Packs does claim the win. 3-0 over Shameless. GG. GG, well played. That leads us into the Monday Night Weeklies, the PTR edition. This was later that evening. Here we did have Max Packs. Max Packs, he takes down Shameless once again, 2-0, takes down Big Gabe at 2-0, does fall to Bjorn, and this time Hero was here. Hero, he was a part of this tournament this time. He did fall to Bjorn initially, and Hero, he did fall to Max Packs in the best of one. They had a best of one in the lower bracket. Max Packs did win that first game, and he was able to bring it back against Bjorn at 1-3-0 and then 2-1. Max Packs, he got his revenge, wins 2 tournaments back to back. Clem, by the way, I believe is on vacation, and of course, going to be traveling soon and getting ready for the Masters of the game, but has been on a bit of a break. That leads us into the Wardy TV PTR 2025 edition. Again, for us, we're going to be turning and morphing a lot of our weeklies into PTR tournaments. I believe Wardy, I don't think he's going to be doing that to his Monday night weeklies. If he wants to keep them giving OSC points, I believe that's like a prerequisite, is OSC events have to be on the base game. So that may stop him from moving the weeklies into PTRs. Go onto the PTR, but he does at least host one event here. And hey, speaking of Clem, he wasn't there for the open card, so Clem was a part of this event. Thankfully, Clem takes down Rex 2-0, takes down Harsem 2-0, takes down Max Packs 2-1, and takes down Hero 3-0 as well. Bearing in mind, I believe this was on the most recent edition of the PTR. This was 2 days ago. So I believe it was on the updated version. And congratulations to Clem, looking very dominant. Looking very, very dominant here in the event. GG, well played. Bearing in mind that, of course, changes to the PTR are still, I should say players need some time to adjust to the PTR and adjust to all the changes. So the more events we get on the PTR, the better. So shout out to Wardy for taking one of the first steps. Not the first step, that was Monday Night Weekly, of course. They were the first to take that big plunge. I should have emphasized that as well, is that this week's Monday Night Weekly was on the PTR. I guess they were the first tournament to be run on the PTR as well. True, true. So shout out to Monday Night Weekly, shout out to TKL and those working behind the scenes. That leads us into the Sparkling Tunica of this week's STC. Now, we opted not to run our tournament on the PTR because this is leading into a monthly finals. That is our reasoning. So to apologize if you want some more PTR action, but we're going to be holding off until after the monthly finals. Oh boy, as for this event, we had some crazy results. Young Yakov. So we did decide to follow Yakov here in this tournament, and he himself was very unconfident. He was like, I'm washed, Bappy. Like, I'm out of practice. Like, I'm not going to go far. He was crazy. Yakov, he 2-0'd Wayne. He 2-1'd Bjorn as well. He had some cheeky builds, by the way. He had some cheeky builds, some cheeky all-ins, and Bjorn was cutting corners. Bjorn was being greedy. Crazy upset, and Young Yakov takes on Bjorn 2-1 with some cheese, but also in the late game. That's what's important. He also did beat Bjorn in the late game as well with Ultras, so really impressive play there out of Young Yakov. He then goes up against Geralt, who also, Young Yakov was also able to feature late game Ultra Tech, late game Hive Tech, and also some all-ins as well. Did take down Geralt, and against Nightmare, he went all the way to the ace match. Nightmare was favored, Geralt was favored, Björn was favored, Wayne was everyone was favored against Young Yakov. And Young Yakov, he doesn't win the event, but he forces Nightmare to the ace match. This was a crazy tournament for Young Yakov. Like, this is the best that he's looked in a long time. I'll be honest. We just covered him in the Sunny Lake Cup. Young Yakov, he got outperformed by GG Machine, and by Wayne, and by Nicorat, and by a couple of others, I believe, as well. Like, Young Yakov, he struggled in Sunny Lake Cup, but here, he excels. He does excel, so really impressive play there. On Nightmare's side, I shouldn't gloss over that. Nightmare, he 2-0'd Nickrat, and he 2-0'd Creator, right? I would have favored Creator over Nightmare, but Nightmare does take down Creator 2-0, so very impressive win there by Nightmare, as he does win the entire tournament. But I'm most impressed by Young Yakov for having his tournament run, for making it to the finals, and making the finals as close as it was. Like, that was a crazy run out of Young Yakov. Crazy. That leads us into this week's Big Star Cup. It looks like this week was a little bit smaller. Oh, no. I guess they just cut down the Wikipedia page for some reason. They did decide to cut down the brackets, but the signups were solid, I will say, and we did have Max takes down Mute 2-0, takes down Creator 3-1, and then does fall to Solar in the finals 3-0. That's crazy. Solar 3-0 over MaxPax. Very impressive performance there by Solar. He doesn't just 3-0 MaxPax, he 3-2s Björn. Solar, that's crazy. that's crazy impressive. I would love to see those games, and I feel a little bit spoiled because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be covering these replays, by the way, over the weekend. But yeah, really impressive run there by Solar, and I look forward to seeing what happened in these games, what happened in these matches. To look forward to it. GG well played. Really impressive considering MaxPax's current form. Speaking of MaxPax, coming into Little League Cup, we spoke earlier how I'm sure MaxPax was very happy during the WardyTV Monday that he didn't play against Classic. Because of why? Because of Rogue. Remember, Rogue beat Classic, so Classic never played MaxPax in the Monday Night Weekly. Sorry, in the WardyTV Monday. Here, there's no Rogue. This time, there's no Rogue to stop him. So MaxPax, he comes in from one side, he takes down Shameless, takes down Creator, and MaxPax makes it to the finals. Meanwhile, Classic takes down Percival, takes down Cure. Classic also makes it to the finals. They finally do get to face off, and Classic does get the win 3-2 over MaxPax. They missed each other in the WardyTV Monday. They hit each other here in the League Cup, and Classic does get the win. Was very close, very clutch. Went the distance, went to the ace match. Could have gone either way. Again, Classic, MaxPax, Hero, all three of them, they trade. They trade back and forth. Hero beat Classic in KSL. Classic beats MaxPax here in Little League Cup, and MaxPax beat Hero in Monday Night Weekly. They like the circle of life. They all beat each other. Those are the three best Protoss players in the world, and here Classic does beat MaxPax in Little League Cup. GG, well played. Congratulations. Does bring him down. That leads us into the RSL. We're done with the weeklies, so we're now jumping into RSL, the Revival StarCraft League. There's been a lot of controversy about this event just because of the growth of the Patreon and where the money's been going. That is true. We did, of course, express our own concerns about that. We're pushing for transparency, and it is on those working on RSL to be transparent when it comes to that. Something that was announced this season is that they have confirmed 3 seasons of RSL. Season 1, Season 2, Season 3 this year, and they will have an offline finals, and they're booking a venue with a live audience. So a lot of the money for Patreon, I'm sure, is going to booking the live venue and actually getting the production team ready for a live broadcast and a live studio broadcast of the offline finals. So I'm sure that's where a lot of that has gone. That is not cheap, not at all. So that is what they're working towards the end of the year. What I will say is that admission is not free. That you have to pay for tickets as well. Bear that in mind. You have to pay to be a part, to go to enter the event, to be a part of that. And more details will be announced soon in October. That'll be announced for the offline finals. Meanwhile, for the main event for RSL, we had already gone through the entirety of the group stage, and we were getting into the playoffs themselves. So when it comes to the playoff bracket here, we had a Cure. Cure takes down Shin 3-1. Honestly, when it comes to the first round, a lot of these matches were one-sided, except for Zan versus Reina. Zan versus Reina was very close, was very clutch. If you miss it, I recommend the VODs. What happened? Zan, he adapted the hell out of Raynor. that was a lot of adepts, a lot of glaive adepts here out of Zaun. Just he adapted the hell out of Raynor. Raynor got knocked down to the lower bracket. Zaun did advance on. He did take down Cure to make it to the upper bracket finals. Meanwhile, Classic takes down Trigger 3-0, takes down Maru 3-0. Classic did come in here as the favorite player to win the entire tournament. I mentioned something similar, actually, if you remember. I mentioned something similar in the Woody TV Monday, where for that weekly, there was no one to stop MaxPax, right? We spoke about it. hero didn't sign up, Clem didn't sign up, and Rogue stopped Classic. So because of that, MaxPax had a really clean run in the Woody TV Monday. Here it's something similar, where I would say that Classic came in as the heavy favorite, and I don't see MaxPax, I don't see Hero, I don't see Clem, I don't see Serral either. I would say the biggest threat in this tournament to Classic would have been Raynor, but they never played. I say they never played. They played in the group stage. If you look, they played in the group stage, and Raynor did beat Classic. He beat Classic in the group stage. Raynor advanced out of the group stage in first place over Classic. So again, the biggest threat in this tournament to Classic was Raynor, but they did not play in the playoffs because of players like Zaun, right? Zaun, he cheesed the hell out of Raynor, knocked him down, and then Cure mech the hell out of Raynor. Like Cure, he was able to not just showcase some mech, but also showcase some strong bio-timing attacks as well. Cure did knock Raynor out of the tournament in the lower bracket semi-final. So really impressive play there by Cure. He pulled off the reverse sweep. Cure, he knocked out Trigger, he knocked out Raynor who had knocked out Maru. I'm impressed that Maru did go to the ace match against Raynor, I will say that. I had lower expectations for Maru, but for Maru to beat Bjorn and to take Raynor to the ace match was very impressive. As Cure takes down Raynor, and then we had our top three. We had Zaun, Classic, and Cure. Zaun versus Cure was so close. It was so close, it was so clutch. It was honestly a really entertaining series. Really entertaining. I'll be honest, it was after this lower bracket finals that I really regretted, and it really did hurt the broadcast that there were no interviews. There were no winners interviews. This is one of my big criticisms of the event, is that the show is very short, very brief, and very... it's very short, it's very brief, it's very thinned out as well. I feel like there's a lot that can be done with the show when it comes to bringing on guests and when it comes to interviewing as well. You're in Korea, you know, some of the production team, they can speak Korean. If not, hire a translator, get Maddox in there, get Crank in there, get anyone in there to help translate, get Solar, pay Solar to be the translator, do anything, because you're in Korea, and it would be really cool to get interviews, whether it's loser, whether it's I'm more comfortable with winners interviews, of course, to be able to hear from the players and hear their thoughts, what was going on, go through their process, have some brief analysis of the game. There's more that you can do. Again, when I say how brief and how thinned out it was, there were some broadcast days where it was like 2 hours. I think there was a cast where it was like 1 hour and 40 minutes. Like, they have really short broadcast days because they have like 1 series a day, 2 series a day. Things of that nature. So really short casts, and I feel like there's no need for that. Like, I should say, if you want to limit the amount of matches you cover and actually only have 2 casts a day, 2 series a day, that's fine, but you can make something else of your time there and make use of the fact that you have a studio, you're in South Korea. I think that was one of my biggest criticisms, is, hey, you're in Korea, most of the players here in the tournament are local. Everyone was, except for Raynor, right? Trigger's in Korea. Classic, Maru, Bjorn, Zaun, Shin, Cure, they're all in Korea. They're all around. You can bring them on. You can interview them. You can talk to them. You can have them on as a guest for when they don't have to play. You can do something of that. Whether it's the players themselves, whether it's other content creators in Korea, whether it's Crank, whether it's Maddox, whether it's anyone else. Like, there's so much you can do with a studio set up in Korea, but it feels like there's a little wasted opportunity and a wasted potential currently in the RSL broadcast. I hope that they improve it. I hope they do more with it. I do look forward to what RSL becomes in the future. I just hope they're able to improve, and they're able to iterate, and they're able to make something more of the broadcast than what it is. Because what it is right now is, I would say, a shell of what it could be. So That's my big criticism, not the games themselves, but the production of RSL. I feel like, and the show itself, I feel like can be improved upon quite a bit. Even the RSL After Dark, like, yeah. So there's a lot of criticisms to levy to RSL. Regardless, the games themselves and the tournament itself is solid, but like again, the show itself could be improved upon. Zaun did advance onto the grand finals, and Classic had his way with Zaun. Again, Classic was coming as heavy favorite. As I mentioned before, the biggest threat to Classic in this event would have been Reynor. They never played. They never did play, at least in the playoffs. They never did play. They never did face off. So Classic had a much more dominant run here in this tournament with a 3-0 over Trigger, 3-0 over Maru, 4-1 over Zaun, and then 4-1 over Zaun once again. GG. Oh. GG, well played with that. Classic does claim the entire season here, back to back. Actually, fun fact: Classic, he won season 1 of RSL, and he's also the season 2 champion as well. So back to back champion. Can he go for the hat trick? Can he win all 3 in a row? We'll see. It's going to be on Classic there, but I'm sure he can. So best of luck. Best of luck to Classic as he does endeavor to go for another win and go for another season. Again, season 3 is going to be in November. November will be season 3. I think the qualifiers will be in October. I want to say they already released specific dates regarding that. So let me just quickly double check. Yes, so the Americas qualifier is on the 31st of October. Then we have on the 1st of November the Korean qualifier, and the 2nd of November the European qualifier. So 3 days straight of qualifiers. Dates are confirmed, and signups are live. Yes, challenge pages are live, so you can sign up. You can sign up already for the next season of the RSL. In regards to feedback, I believe you can reach out and provide feedback via Patreon. I think that's when they mainly do aggregate and they mainly do collect feedback. But I do hope that they're able to take some of it to heart, and I do hope they're able to improve the event itself, because I do think there is room for improvement. Otherwise, of course, much love to those working on the event, to Tasteless, to State, to Gemini, to Ziggy, to Sturgeon, to all those working behind the scenes, to God, what's his name? I wanted to say Lucian. It's not Lucian. Oh God. That's it. It was named like that. Lucas. Shout out to Lucas as well. He's one of the production guys behind the scenes. And I'm sure many other nameless people working behind the scenes as well on the production of the event. So yeah. Oh, Mapple. True, Mapple. He was the observer as well. That's another criticism. I think they even said it during the cast themselves. Apparently Mapple is observing, but Mapple does not hear the casters. So he's off by himself observing and providing a clean feed, but he's not on a call with the casters. So whenever they're asking for something, whenever they want to know something, like Mapple, he's not reacting to that because he doesn't hear them. He's like blindly providing the clean feed to them, and they're just casting from the clean feed without Mapple actually getting any audio from them. So that's something that needs to be worked on.
So, Light, what you are saying is that they are providing the true GSL experience where the observer only hears the Korean cast, so the English casters cannot ask anything.
Yes, except Mapple, he can't even hear the Korean. He's deaf. They got a deaf observer out there. That's what they got. Oh no, he's not listening to anyone. Oh no. So that's also something that I don't know why they're doing. They get him in a call, Pappy. Just get him in a call. Have him listen into the stream. Make a Discord call or something. Set it up. What are you doing? God damn it. Let him in, but let Mapple hear what's going on so we can show you what you want to see, Pappy. Aye. But yeah, there's a lot that can be improved upon when it comes to the RSL. Shaking my head, but overall, again, the event itself is solid. The games themselves are solid as well. So best of luck moving forward, coming into season 3. As that is all the events covered for the week. Remember, this is only this week, by the way. Every week, this is basically what we have. Like every week, just non-stop StarCraft, non-stop tournaments. We do cover most of this ourselves, but there are some events that we're not able to just because we have been taking a bit of a step back in regards to casting and covering more tournaments. We have been trying to take a bit of a break and taking a little bit easy here, casting once a day instead of twice a day. I know, it's crazy. How dare we? Meanwhile, if you want to support this event, first things first, if you want to play in some of these tournaments, ! Sign up list, I believe. Yeah, there we go. ! Sign up list in the chat. I mentioned earlier that signups are already available for RSL Season 3. So, hey, that's already available. That's going to be coming in towards the end of October. But you have all the Open Cups as well. And also Starfest. We got Starfest. We got SC4ALL. We got some big offline events on the horizon. We got the UK Epic Lane, of course, and more tournaments. So do check them out over on the sign up list. Also, you can support us via Patreon, !Patreon in the chat. Our Patreon does fund our tournaments specifically, but I believe our next goal is to actually pay the casters and pay the admins, is to actually provide us with some support as well. So we do appreciate all the support on Patreon. It's helped us grow the events, and you can help us grow them even further via Patreon. We would love to be able to grow the Patreon to the point where we can host monthly tournaments on a regular basis. Right now, we did get a very generous donation in the chat. We had a $2,000 USD donation to the channel, and we're putting all that money towards monthly tournaments. That's why the Tuna Cup has a monthly finals for September, October, November, December. For the next 4 months, that's where the $2,000 is going. 500 USD for every single monthly. That's going to be at the end of the month, and the September monthly is coming up. 8 players invited based off of their performances in the weekly tournaments. So again, thank you so much to the massive donation. And again, if you want to help us organically grow to that point, you can do so via Patreon, where we can get to the point where we don't have to rely on any big donation, where we can host those monthlies ourselves based on the money gathered from Patreon. That's the goal. That's the hope. That's the dream, baby. That's the dream. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Our next event, our next broadcast is going to be tomorrow. I believe tomorrow is it Little League Cup? Just double checking, and no, tomorrow is Masters 1. That's it. So MSO, Masters 1 Open is tomorrow. Maestros of the game is going to be this weekend. We didn't even get to talk about it, but yes, Maestros, the big event happening in France, in Paris, is happening this weekend. Players are traveling, players are flying, and that is also why we will not have the Tuna Cup on Sunday, because some of the players that are competing in our monthly tournaments are going to be traveling back from France after the event. So that's why the Tuna Cup is on Tuesday instead, to avoid clashing with the flights of the players. So we have some players that are flying to and flying back from Paris, France, that are going to be competing in the Tuna Cup. Meanwhile, we have Pickerstar Cup and Replay Cast on Sunday. We have Woody TV Monday, and of course, plenty more tournaments throughout the course of the week. But again, the big event happening this week is Maestros of the game. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Big shout out to Kuro, of course, for handling the production and for setting up all the topics and all the topics leading into this broadcast, leading into the podcast. If we miss something, if there's a tournament that you know of, or if there's something you want us to discuss, then let us know. Let us know. You can reach out to us via Discord, via email, via the Twitch chat, and we will look into it and add it to the next week, to our next podcast. One of the things that we'll be talking about next week is going to be the PTR for SC Evo. True, StarCraft Evolution League. We did miss out on the SC Evo PTR patch notes. We will do so next week. True, as a heads up. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And we're going to be heading off for the time being. We'll see you guys tomorrow for Master Swan Open. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao, papi, ciao. See you next time. The hopium is real, papi. The hopium. Crazy. See you next time.